My child, stop right now. Do not scroll. Do not look away from these words, not even for a second, because what I am about to speak over your life is the very thing your spirit has been aching to hear for longer than you realize. I am not asking for your attention the way the world asks for it, with noise and spectacle and the relentless pull of 1,000 other things demanding to be seen first. I am stepping into this moment with the full weight of heaven behind me, and I need you to feel the difference. Something is happening right now that is bigger than the screen you are looking at. Something is moving in the unseen realm, in the space between breath and thought, in the hidden place where your spirit lives, and I need you to be present for it, not half present, not distracted, fully here, with me, because this moment was not arranged casually. I arranged it. I reached across the noise of your day and pulled you to this exact intersection of time and word because I have been trying to reach you, and today I am not stopping until you hear me completely. You are not here by chance, my child. I want to say that again because I know how quickly your mind wants to dismiss it. You are not here because an algorithm decided to place something in your path. You are not here because you happen to be scrolling at the right moment. I placed this in front of you. I intervened. I orchestrated the sequence of events, large and small, that led your eyes to these words at this exact moment in your life. And I did it because I have something to say to you that I will not let the noise of the world keep buried any longer. I want you to understand something before we go any further. This message is not for everyone who sees it. It was not sent into the world like a net cast wide without purpose. It was crafted, carried, and delivered for one specific person, and my child, that person is you. You may not feel chosen right now. You may look at the landscape of your life, at the gaps and the silences and the prayers that seem to dissolve into the ceiling before they ever reached me, and think that you are the last person heaven would single out for something like this. But that thought is not from me. That thought is from the one who has spent years trying to convince you that my eyes pass over you without pausing, that my plans are for others who seem more put together, more worthy, more ready. That thought is a lie, and today I am dismantling it completely. I am not joking. I say that with the full authority of everything that I am. I do not joke about destiny. I do not arrange divine appointments casually. When I say this message is 100% for you, I mean that I have been carrying it toward you with intention, with precision, with a love so vast and so specific that it encompasses your name, your face, the exact weight of what you have been carrying in silence for longer than you should have had to carry it alone. The love that is reaching you through these words is not conditional on your performance. It does not require that you have your life arranged in a certain way before it is permitted to touch you. It meets you exactly where you are. And where you are, my child, is exactly where I always knew you would be at this moment in your journey. I saw the road that brought you here. I watched every step. I was present for every closed door and every silent night and every moment of confusion when you could not understand why things were unfolding the way they were. I saw you when you tried to explain your pain to someone who did not have the capacity to hold it. I saw when you swallowed the words back down and smiled instead because it was easier than watching someone not understand. I saw you when you sat alone at the end of a day that should have felt good but somehow left you emptier than before. I saw all of it, every single moment, and I need you to hear me when I say this. Nothing you went through was invisible to me. The reason I am pressing in with such urgency right now, the reason I am calling this message 100% yours, is not simply because I love you, though I do love you with a love that is beyond your capacity to fully receive in a single sitting. I am pressing in with urgency because the enemy of your soul has done something deeply calculated and cruel. He has used your quiet struggles. He has used the seasons of waiting and the unanswered prayers and the moments when heaven seems silent to build a wall between your heart and my voice. He has used your own pain against you, turning it into a narrative that says you are forgotten, overlooked, outside the radius of where miracles happen, and that narrative has cost you things. It has cost you peace. It has cost you the ability to rest in the promise I made over your life before the foundations of the world were laid. Today I am tearing that wall down, not brick by brick, not gradually. I am removing it entirely because the time for that wall to stand is over. I have been trying to reach you before this moment. I want you to know that. I have whispered in the quiet of your early mornings, in that space between sleep and waking when your defenses are not fully up and your spirit is closest to the surface. I have spoken through the sudden stillness that sometimes falls over you in the middle of a busy afternoon, when everything around you is moving and loud and yet something inside you goes completely quiet for just a breath. I have placed feelings in your chest that you could not quite name, a longing that had no object you could point to, a pulling towards something larger than your current life, a sense that there is a version of your story that has not yet been written and that it is closer than you think. I have been speaking in all of those moments, and now I am not speaking softly anymore. I am speaking clearly, deliberately, with everything I have, because this is the moment. This is what all of it has been building toward. Stay with me. Do not let the noise of your life pull you away from this. What I am about to speak over you in this message is going to reach rooms inside of you that have been locked for a very long time. I built those rooms. I know what is stored in each one. I know the grief that lives there and the hope that was buried there and the version of you that you used to believe in before the accumulation of disappointments made belief feel dangerous. I know all of it, and I am here to tell you, with everything that I am, that those rooms are not evidence of failure. They are not proof that something is irreparably broken in you. They are the very places where I am about to do something that will make your whole life look different in the rearview mirror. This is the moment everything changes. Listen carefully to what I am saying. I have tried many times. I have used small signs and quiet nudges and the mouths of people who did not even know they were carrying my words to you. And today, I am not nudging. I am not whispering through someone else. I am speaking directly into your life in this moment, using every resource available to me to make sure you do not miss what I have prepared for you. The enemy has been working overtime to keep you from moments like this. He knows what happens when my children actually stop and listen. He knows what gets released when the wall between a weary heart and my voice finally comes down. He has worked hard to fill your days with enough noise and enough anxiety and enough distraction to ensure that you would always find a reason to scroll past. But you did not scroll past. You are here, and that is not small. That is significant in ways that you do not yet fully understand, but that you are about to begin to see clearly. My child, I want you to take a slow breath right now. Just one. Let your shoulders drop. Let the tight place in your chest, the one that has been contracted for so long that you have stopped noticing it, let that place begin to soften just a little, because what is coming in this message is not more weight for you to carry. It is the beginning of the weight being lifted. It is the sound of a door that I have been preparing opening at last. It is my voice finding your heart at exactly the right moment, and I am asking you to stay, to not rush, to give me the time this requires. Because what I have for you today is not something you can receive in a hurry, and it is worth every second you spend here with me. My beloved child, I want to begin this part of our time together by simply seeing you, not correcting you, not instructing you, not listing what you should have done differently or what you need to change in order to deserve what I am about to release into your life. Just seeing you, the real you, the version that exists beneath the competence and the routines and the face you show to the world. The version that surfaces at night when the house is quiet and there is nothing left to busy yourself with and the thoughts come in like water under a door. I see how tired you are, not tired in the way that a good night of sleep fixes. Tired in the soul, tired in the place where your hope lives. You have been carrying something for a long time that was never meant to be carried alone, and the weight of it has settled into you so gradually that you have stopped being able to distinguish between the weight and yourself. You have started to believe that this is just what life feels like, that this heaviness is just the texture of being an adult, of being responsible, of moving through a world that is harder than anyone told you it would be. And I need to gently, firmly, completely disagree with that belief. That weight does not belong to you. You were not created to carry it. And the fact that you have carried it this far is not a sign of weakness. It is the most extraordinary evidence of your strength. I have watched you, my child. I have watched you do things for others that no one will ever know about. I have watched you give from a place inside yourself that was already nearly empty, because you could not bear the thought of someone else going without. I have watched you be the one who holds things together, the one others come to when they are falling apart, the one who absorbs the weight of the room without anyone thinking to ask how you are doing beneath all of that. I have watched you smile at a time when your heart was doing something far more complicated than smiling. I have watched you put on the face of someone who is fine when fine was the furthest thing from the truth, because you have learned over years and years that it is easier to be fine than to explain what you actually are, which is someone who is fighting hard and hoping privately and aching for something to change but not quite knowing where to begin. I see it all. Every hidden moment, every silent thing, every brave and ordinary act of love you have performed without applause and without recognition, I see it. And I want you to know that what you have dismissed as small is not small to me. The meal you made for someone who did not think to thank you, the prayer you prayed at midnight for someone who was unaware, the times you chose kindness when bitterness would have been the easier option, the moments you showed up when everything in you wanted to stay home and be still. I have cataloged all of it. None of it was wasted. None of it disappeared into the air. Every seed you have planted in secret is known to me, and the harvest of those seeds is part of what I am in the process of releasing into your life right now. But I also want to talk about the pain, because I cannot fully reach you in this moment if I only speak to the parts of you that are presentable. I need to speak to the parts that hurt, and I know they hurt. I know there is a loneliness in you that has surprised you with its persistence. You thought it would fade when circumstances changed, when you achieved the thing you were working toward, when the relationship arrived or improved, or when the situation at work resolved. But the loneliness did not fade. It moved with you. It followed you into the better seasons and sat quietly in the corner and waited. And you have not fully known what to do with that, because from the outside, your life should not produce this kind of longing. From the outside, things look reasonable enough. But inside, there is a gap between the life you are living and the life you can feel waiting for you, and that gap has been the source of a grief that you have not had a name for. I have a name for it. That grief is the echo of your calling. That longing is your soul recognizing the distance between where you are and where I made you to be. And the reason it has not faded is not because something is wrong with you. It is because I designed it to be persistent. I designed that longing to survive every lesser satisfaction, to remain even when everything else is adequate, to keep calling you towards something that adequacy cannot reach. You were not built for a life that is merely adequate. You were built for something that your heart has always known was possible, even when your mind could not work out the logistics. And what you have been calling grief is actually the compass that has kept pointing you in the right direction, even when everything else was telling you to settle. I need you to hear that, my child, not as a concept, not as a nice thought to carry with you and then set down when the day gets busy again. I need that truth to reach the part of you that makes decisions. The part that has been on the verge of deciding that the gap between where you are and where you were made to be is simply too large to cross. The part that has been quietly entertaining the idea that perhaps the version of your life that feels most real, the struggling version, the tired version, the version that cannot quite get ahead, is the actual version, and that the bigger life you sense in your spirit is just a fantasy. I am here to tell you directly that it is not a fantasy. It is a blueprint. And I am still building toward it in ways that you cannot yet see, but that are already in motion. Let me be close to you right now. Let me into the room where you keep the things you do not say. I know it is crowded in there. I know there are questions you have been afraid to ask me because you were not sure you could handle the answer. I know there are disappointments you have been carefully not looking at directly, because if you looked at them too long, you might crumble, and you cannot afford to crumble. I know all of it. And I want you to understand something that is true regardless of what the answers to those questions turn out to be. I am not afraid of your pain. I am not overwhelmed by your questions. I am not standing at a distance with my arms crossed while you figure out how to be worthy of my attention. I am already here. I have already moved in close. And I am asking you, gently, to let me. My child, I want to linger here for a moment because I think you have been rushing past this part of yourself for a very long time. The world trains you to move quickly, to process and conclude and move on, to feel what you feel, file it somewhere, and return to the business of functioning. And you are extraordinarily good at functioning. You have become so skilled at it that sometimes even the people closest to you do not realize how much is happening beneath the surface, beneath the calm and the capability and the reliable presence you bring to every room. You have become the person that other people lean on, and you have accepted that role because it feels like purpose and because it gives your pain somewhere useful to go. But I want to ask you something, and I want you to sit with it rather than answer it quickly. Who holds you, my child? When the day ends and the responsibilities are set down and the performance is finally over, who holds the weight of you? Who reaches into the places where you keep your real exhaustion and your real fear and your real longing and says, I see it, I have you, you do not have to carry this alone anymore. I ask not to make you feel the absence more acutely. I ask because I want to be that presence for you. I ask because that is precisely what I have always been, what I have always offered, and what the noise of the world and the business of survival has sometimes kept you from letting me be. I am offering it again, right now, openly, without condition, without a waiting period, without requiring that you arrive at this moment having already done the work of healing. Come as you are, come with all of it. I am not deterred by what you bring. There is a tenderness in me toward you that I do not think you fully believe in. I know that. I have watched you interact with the idea of my love in a way that keeps it at arm's length, not because you do not want it, but because somewhere along the way you developed a suspicion that it is probably for other people more fully than it is for you. That my love is general and wide and somewhat impersonal, reaching you only as part of a broad category rather than as the specific, irreplaceable, entirely irreducible individual that you are. My child, I need to correct that directly. My love for you is not a category love. It is not the kind that reaches you after it has been distributed among the more deserving. I love you the way I would love you if you were the only one. And the fact that there are others who are also loved with that same completeness is not a delusion. It is a testament to the nature of what I am, which is love without boundary and without depletion. There is enough of me for all of you, and there is all of me for you. My child, I want to take you somewhere very specific right now. I want to take you back to a moment that you carry more often than you let yourself admit. I do not mean back in a way that reopens old wounds without purpose. I mean back in a way that lets the light in from a different angle, so that you can finally see what that moment actually was, what it was not, and what I was doing in the middle of it. There have been seasons in your life when you believed in something with everything you had. You prayed for it. You worked toward it. You held it in your heart the way you hold something precious, carefully, with both hands, making sure not to drop it. And then it did not come, or it came, and then was taken, or it arrived in a form so different from what you had asked for that you were not even sure if it counted. And in the silence that followed, in the gap between what you had believed and what actually happened, something shifted inside you, not all at once. The way all the most significant shifts happen, gradually and then with sudden finality, something in you decided it was safer to want less, to hope more quietly, to hold the things you longed for a little more loosely, so that when they did not arrive, or when they arrived broken, the fall would not be as far. I know about that decision, my child. I was there when you made it, and I understand why you made it. It was not faithlessness. It was self-protection. It was the logic of a person who has learned that certain kinds of hope carry with them a certain kind of risk, and that the risk is not always worth it. I understand that logic. But I also need to tell you that the conclusion you reached, the conclusion that smaller hoping is wiser hoping, is costing you something. It is keeping you in a smaller version of the life I designed for you. And today I am asking you to open your hands again. I want to speak about the specific texture of your exhaustion, because I think you have been misreading it. The tiredness you feel is not just the tiredness of having done a great deal. It is the tiredness of having done a great deal while carrying a weight you were never given. Let me explain what I mean by that. There is the work of living, the daily effort of showing up and being present and meeting responsibilities and doing what needs to be done. That work is real and it is tiring in a normal and manageable way. But there is another kind of weight that many of my children carry alongside all of that, and that is the weight of trying to make things happen that only I can make happen. The weight of trying to manufacture, through effort and strategy and willpower, the outcomes that belong in my hands and not yours. That particular weight is exhausting in a different way. It is the kind of exhausting that sleep cannot fix, because it is not your body that is overextended, it is your spirit, which was designed to trust and not to control, that is stretched thin. I am not saying this to shame you for trying. I am saying this because the trying is evidence of how much you care. You care about your life. You care about the people in it. You care about the things I placed in your heart that still feel unresolved. And that caring has manifested as effort, as striving, as the relentless internal pressure to make things happen now, to figure out what you are doing wrong so that you can fix it, to work harder or pray differently or somehow bridge the gap between where you are and where you sense you should be. And my child, I want to invite you to put that down, not permanently, not in a way that leads to passivity, but right now, in this moment, I want to invite you to let go of the striving and just be with me. Because here is what I want you to understand. The gap you have been trying to close with your effort is not a gap that effort closes. I am not dismissing effort. Effort is part of how things get built. But the gap between where you are and where I have designed you to be is a gap that closes through trust and through surrender, and through the willingness to believe that I am working in the unseen spaces that your effort cannot reach. There are doors in your life that effort alone will never open because they require a key that only I carry. There are seasons in your life that effort alone will never accelerate because their timing is governed by things that are beyond the reach of human striving. There are relationships, opportunities, healings, and reversals that are waiting in the corridor of what I have prepared for you, and what is holding them back is not a lack of effort on your part. What is holding them back is the right moment, and my child, the right moment is arriving. I want to be very honest with you here, because honesty is what this moment requires. I know that what I am saying sounds like something you have heard before. I know that the language of trust and waiting and divine timing can sound, to a person who has been waiting for a long time, like a kind of beautiful but ultimately comfortable evasion, like a way of speaking that is true enough to be acceptable but not specific enough to be useful. I am aware of that, and I want to address it directly, because I am not coming to you today with a general encouragement that you can take or leave. I am coming with something specific. I am coming with a word about this season of your life, this particular stretch of road that you are on right now, and what I see when I look at it that you cannot see from where you are standing. When I look at what you have been walking through, I do not see waste. I do not see time lost. I do not see the absence of movement that you sometimes perceive when you look at your life from the inside. I see preparation. I see a person who is being made ready for something that would have broken them if it had arrived 6 months ago, or a year ago, or at any of the moments when you were asking me why it had not come yet. I see the development of a depth in you, a capacity for compassion and patience and endurance that is going to be absolutely essential to what I am building in and through your life. You could not have manufactured that depth yourself. It required exactly the crucible you have been in, and I want to tell you that the crucible time is ending. I want to tell you that what you have been being prepared for is now close enough that I am beginning to give you the information you need to receive it. And this message is part of that information. My child, let me tell you something about the people who are closest to you right now. They love you. Many of them love you genuinely, but they cannot fully see what I see when I look at your life. They see the chapter they are in with you. They see the surface of your days, and the outcomes that are visible, and the choices that have results they can observe. But they cannot see the thread. They cannot see the long red line that I have been drawing through every seemingly disconnected event of your life, pulling all of it toward a single convergence point that is coming. I can see it. I have designed it, and it is close. The things that seem to break apart in your past are part of the thread. The relationships that ended, not all of them, but the ones that were genuinely meant to close so that new rooms could open. The opportunities that dissolved before they fully formed, not because I had abandoned you, but because they would have taken you in a direction that would have put more distance between you and where you are actually going. The seasons of waiting and the seasons of confusion and the seasons where you could not see any movement happening at all, and yet something was quietly being assembled in the space that you could not see. All of it is in the thread. All of it is connected. And I am asking you, in this moment, to choose to believe that even when you cannot see the pattern, I am weaving it, and it is leading somewhere beautiful. I know that choosing to believe that is not always easy. I know it requires something from you. I know it means releasing a certain kind of white-knuckle grip on the need to have things explained and understood and figured out before you are able to rest. And I am not asking you to be something you are not. I am asking you to take one step, just one, to let this message into the place where you make your real decisions and allow it to plant something there that will grow in ways you will see very clearly in the coming days. This is not the end of our conversation. This is the beginning. Stay with me. My beloved child, I want to speak to you now about something that I know has caused you more confusion than almost anything else in your journey with me. I want to speak about the silence, not the peaceful silence, not the quiet that feels like rest. I mean the other kind, the kind that has a weight to it, the kind that arrives when you have prayed and waited and hoped and the answer has not come, and the quiet that follows feels less like peace and more like distance. I know you have sat in that silence. I know you have had to decide what to do with it, and I know that the conclusions you reached in those silences have shaped you in ways that are still operating in your life right now. Here is what I need you to understand about those silences. They were never empty. Not a single one of them. Every silence you experienced in your time with me was filled with something that you could not hear with your natural ears, but that was very much present. I was working, not in a vague general sense, but specifically. I was working on the thing you were praying for, and I was working on you, and I was working on the other people involved, and I was working on the circumstances that needed to shift before the answer could arrive in the form that would actually do what it needed to do in your life. The silence was not me being absent. The silence was me being very busy in places that you could not see. I want you to think about the moments in your life when you tried to make something happen before it was ready, when you pushed a door that was not meant to open at that moment, when you tried to accelerate a process that I had calibrated very carefully for a very good reason. Sometimes those moments worked out in a surface way and led to complications you had to spend years untangling. Sometimes those moments hit a wall and left you more frustrated than before. I am not revisiting those memories to make you feel regret. I am revisiting them to show you something. The resistance you felt in those moments, the wall, the frustration, the sense that something was not moving the way you wanted it to move, was not my punishment. It was my protection. I was not keeping good things from you. I was keeping things from arriving in a sequence that would have hurt you, and the same principle applies right now. Whatever is not moving in your life at this moment is not stuck because I have forgotten you or because you have done something to put yourself outside the radius of my favor. It is calibrated, it is intentional, and it is close to shifting. My child, I want to tell you about the enemy of your soul and what he has been doing specifically in this season of your life, because I think you have sensed it without having fully named it. The enemy does not have the power to change your destiny. He does not have the ability to reach into what I have written over your life and erase it, but he does have the ability to do something that can make the destiny feel impossible to reach. He can change how you see yourself. He can work on your perception. He can use the accumulation of difficulties and disappointments and silences to slowly, patiently, over a period of years, shift the way you understand yourself in relation to what is possible for you. He can take a person who was born with extraordinary capacity and profound calling and gradually, through a series of small redefinitions, turn them into someone who has learned to dream inside a box that was never meant to contain them. That is what has been happening, my child, and I want you to see it clearly, not to produce fear, but to produce freedom, because the moment you can identify the mechanism that has been working against you, it loses much of its power. The enemy is not a god. He has no creative power of his own. He can only distort and delay and deceive. And the specific deception he has been working in your life has been this. He has been taking the evidence of your difficult seasons and using it to build a case that your difficult seasons represent your ceiling, that the struggles are not temporary, that they are structural, that the life you sense in your spirit is not actually for someone like you, but for some theoretical other person who started in a better position or made better choices or had more of whatever you feel you are lacking. And here is the truth that destroys that entire case. You were not born to be who you have become in the hard seasons. You were born to be who I made you before the hard seasons began. The hard seasons did not define the limit of your life. They were the training ground for it, and the version of you that exists beneath the wear of all those seasons. The one I placed in you before the world had a chance to layer things over it. That version of you is not gone. It is not diminished. It is actually more ready now than it has ever been, because it has been refined in exactly the way that gold is refined. The dross has been burned away. What remains is the real thing. What remains is what I made you to be. And what I made you to be is far more than what the difficult seasons allowed you to believe. My child, you are not what the hard years made you think you are. You are what I said you are before one single hard year arrived. I want to invite you to receive something right now, not to figure it out, not to examine it from a safe intellectual distance and decide whether it is consistent with your experience, just to receive it. I am speaking something over your life in this moment that is not contingent on your circumstances. It is not contingent on how this week has gone, or how last year felt, or how this year has started. It is a declaration that stands independent of all of that because it comes from a place that your circumstances do not govern. I am declaring over you right now that the season of reduction is ending, that the chapter in which the narrative of your life felt smaller than it was designed to be is closing, and that what is opening is going to be recognizably different, not just better in degree, different in kind, Let me build on that declaration with something even more specific. I want to talk to you about the patterns that have repeated in your life, the ones that have made you wonder whether you are caught in something that cannot be escaped. The pattern of getting close to a breakthrough and then watching it dissolve at the last moment. The pattern of investing deeply in something, a relationship, a project, a season of effort and hope, and then having it conclude in a way that leaves you with more questions than answers. The pattern of taking 2 steps forward and finding something waiting at step 3 that sends you back to a place that feels familiar in the worst way. I know those patterns. I have watched them from a position of complete clarity, and I want to tell you directly what they are. They are not evidence of a curse. They are not proof that something is fundamentally broken in the way your life operates. They are the signature of a very specific kind of spiritual season, one that is characterized by preparation disguised as setback. Every time you got close to the thing and watched it dissolve, you were not being withheld from your destiny. You were being protected from a counterfeit of it. The real thing was not ready yet. The real thing was still being assembled, still being aligned, and the counterfeit that almost arrived would have taken you in a direction that put more distance between you and the genuine article. I know how unsatisfying that explanation can feel in the moment when you are watching something you wanted fall apart, but I am asking you to hold it anyway, because the thing that is coming is not a counterfeit, and when it arrives, the patterns that have confused you will suddenly be readable in a way that they were not before. I also want to address something about the people around you, specifically the ones who have seemed to advance easily while you have felt stuck. I have watched you wrestle with this. I have watched you manage the complicated feelings that arise when someone who started at a similar place as you arrives somewhere that you have been working toward and have not yet reached. I want to speak to those feelings without shame and without pretense, because pretending they are not there does not make them smaller. It just makes them operate underground. You have felt, in those moments, a mix of things. Genuine gladness for the other person, yes, but also a quiet pain that is hard to articulate, a question that you have not fully voiced because it feels like the wrong kind of question. Why not me? Why them and not me? And what does it mean about me that the thing seems to happen for others and not yet for me? My child, the answer to that question is not what the enemy has been telling you. The answer is not that you are less. It is not that you are being passed over because of some deficit in your character or your faith or your worthiness. The answer is simply that your timeline is your own. It was designed by me, specifically for you, accounting for everything I know about what you are being prepared for and what you need in place before it can arrive. The people who have moved ahead of you have not taken your portion. There is no competition in my kingdom for the blessings I have assigned to you. Yours are waiting where I placed them, and they will arrive in my timing, which is the only timing that produces what I intend. My child, I want to go deeper now. I want to take us past the surface of what you know about yourself and into the places you rarely let yourself look, not to wound you there, but because that is where the most important conversation needs to happen, and I am not willing to have a conversation with the version of you that you perform for the world when the real you is sitting just beneath it, waiting to be addressed. I saw you when you were at the absolute bottom of what you thought you could endure, and you endured it anyway. I saw when you reached the place inside yourself where you had nothing left to offer and somehow found something anyway, not because you are superhuman, but because the one who made you placed in you a capacity for endurance that you still do not fully understand. I saw you in those moments, and I did not look away. I did not flinch. I did not step back. I leaned in closer. I saw you when the version of events that everyone else believed was so different from what you actually experienced that you felt a kind of doubling, a split between the truth as you lived it and the story that was being told about it, and you had no clean way to reconcile the two. I saw when you chose silence over the exhausting labor of trying to make people understand something that was simply too layered for a brief explanation to reach. I saw when that silence settled around you and became one more room in the house of your interior that you simply learned to live around. I saw you when you were kind to someone who had not been kind to you, not because you did not feel the wound, but because something in you refused to let bitterness become the next chapter. I saw when you forgave in the quiet of your own heart, without ceremony, without the other person even knowing, because carrying the unforgiveness was costing you more than releasing it. I saw you when you chose that release and felt both lighter and lonelier for it at the same time, because releasing a grievance is its own kind of grief, the grief of accepting what will not change, of letting go of the hope that the thing would be acknowledged or corrected or fully understood. I saw all of it, all of the complex emotional work that happens in the interior of a person who is genuinely trying to live well. None of it was invisible. None of it was unremarkable. All of it was noted and held and remembered by me with the kind of care that I hold everything that belongs to you. I saw you when you woke at 3 in the morning with thoughts that arrived like intruders, thoughts about the things that have not yet resolved, the situations that are still in process, the relationships that are still complicated, the finances that still feel precarious, the health concern that has not yet lifted, the dream that is still not yet visible on the horizon. I saw when you lay in the dark with those thoughts circling and tried to talk yourself into rest and could not. I saw when you resorted to prayer not because it felt eloquent but because it was the only place left to put the weight of it. I saw when that prayer was not a beautiful, composed thing but a raw and fractured outpouring from someone who was simply out of ideas and placing everything on the floor of my presence because there was nowhere else for it to go. That prayer reached me. It did not float into the ceiling. It did not disappear into silence. It landed exactly where it needed to land, and I received it with more tenderness than you can imagine. My beloved, I want to say something now that I need you to hold without immediately qualifying it or arguing with it. You are not falling behind. I know it feels that way. I know that when you look at the calendar and look at the plans that existed at certain points and look at where you are now in relation to where you thought you would be, there is a feeling that comes up that is hard to describe but that has something of failure in it, something of lateness, something of having missed a window that you will not get back. I want you to look at that feeling with me for a moment rather than alone, because when you look at it alone, the enemy is right there to interpret it for you, and his interpretation is always the same. He says the feeling means you are behind because you are less. He says the distance between where you are and where you imagined you would be is evidence of inadequacy. He says the gap is your fault, and my child, all of that is a lie. Let me give you the true interpretation of that feeling. The feeling of lateness that you carry is not evidence that you have missed your destiny. It is evidence that your destiny is real. You would not feel the pull towards something that did not exist. The longing is not a taunt. The longing is a compass. It is pointing you towards something that is genuinely yours, genuinely prepared, genuinely coming. And the reason it has not arrived yet is not because something about you disqualifies you from receiving it. The reason it has not arrived yet is the same reason that fruit does not arrive on the tree before the tree is ready to bear it, and before the season is right for it, and before the other conditions that make it what it needs to be are in place. I am a gardener, my child, and I do not rush the harvest. I tend it, I protect it, I wait for the fullness of the right moment, and the right moment is not something I am casual about. There is something I have been growing in you during this season that I could not have produced in any other way. Patience is too simple a word for it. Depth is closer. A kind of knowing that comes only from having walked through something genuinely difficult without being destroyed by it. A kind of authority that comes only from experience, not from theory. The voice that will be able to speak to others who are in the middle of what you have been in the middle of. That voice needed to have actually been there. The compassion that will make you someone who genuinely changes things in other people's lives rather than just moving through them. That compassion needed to be forged in something real. I was forging it. I was forging it in you, specifically, because of what I know about where you are going and what you will need when you get there. My child, not one day of this has been wasted. Not one difficulty has arrived without a purpose I designed. Not one closed door has left you with less than you had before, even when it felt that way, because every closed door added something to you that the open doors cannot. It added a deeper knowing of your own capacity, a deeper trust in me that was tested and survived, a deeper compassion for people in similar places, a deeper understanding of what truly matters versus what only seems to matter when it is present. I have not wasted a single moment of your journey, and what I am building toward, using every element of that journey as the material, is going to be something that makes the difficulty finally make sense in the most profound and complete way. Stay with me. Do not give up now. The next part of what I am saying is where things begin to shift. My child, I want to shift something in this moment. I want to move from speaking about your pain to speaking about my presence inside of it, because I think there is a version of what I have been saying that you could hear as a promise about the future without it touching what is happening right now. and I do not want to leave you with only a future hope while the present is still so heavy. I want to meet you exactly where you are. I have been with you. That is not a phrase I want you to let slide past without receiving it. I have been with you, not in the theological sense that functions like a background assumption you acknowledge without feeling. I have been with you the way that presence is actually present, aware, attentive, in the room, at the table, in the car, in the silent middle of the night when you were the only one awake. I have been in every single space where you have existed in the whole of your life, not because I am obligated to be, but because I want to be. Because you are mine and I am unwilling to let a moment of your life pass without me in it. I was there when you made the decision that still weighs on you. I was there in the room. I was not watching from a distance with my arms crossed. I was right there with you, knowing what you were choosing and why you were choosing it, and I did not leave. I have never left, not in the moment when you thought you had pushed me too far, not in the season when you felt so distant from me that the distance felt permanent, not in the years when you were not looking for me, when your attention was entirely somewhere else and my voice was not something you were listening for. In all of those times I was present. I did not withdraw because you were not attentive to me. I do not operate that way. My presence is not contingent on your performance. Let me tell you about some of the specific moments when I was closer to you than you knew. The moment when you were at the edge of a decision that would have taken you somewhere far from where I was calling you, and something in you hesitated, something you might have called doubt or caution, or just an instinct that something was not right. That hesitation was me. That quiet resistance in your spirit before a wrong door was me, holding the door closed because I could see what you could not see yet about what was behind it. The moment when someone came into your life unexpectedly and said exactly the thing that you needed to hear, and you thought of it afterward as a coincidence. It was not a coincidence. I sent them. I arranged the timing. I put the words in their mouth. They may not have known they were carrying something from me, but I knew. I orchestrated that encounter with you specifically in mind. The moment when things fell apart in a way that felt like disaster, and then weeks or months later you could see that the falling apart had cleared ground for something that would not have been able to grow if the old thing had remained. I was in that too. I was in the falling apart, and I was in the clearing, and I was in the new thing, beginning to grow in the cleared ground. Every transition in your life, no matter how disorienting, has had me in it. Not as a distant force who permits things to happen and then waits to see the outcome, but as the one who is actively working all things toward a purpose that has your name written on it. My beloved child, I want you to feel my presence right now, not just know about it conceptually, but feel it. I want the thing that is reading these words to register that there is something alive and attentive on the other side of them. You are not receiving this message from a system. You are receiving it from me. I chose this moment. I arranged this specific intersection between my voice and your heart with the full weight of my intention behind it. And what I am present in this moment to tell you is that you are not alone. You have never been alone. The version of your story that has felt the loneliest is the version that I was most thoroughly inhabiting alongside you, because I do not withdraw when things get hard. I press in, I get closer. I become more present in the difficult places, not less, because the difficult places are where my children need me the most. I want to tell you something about the way I see you when I look at you right now. I see someone who has been through genuine things, not exaggerated things, not things that were manufactured by weakness or failure. Genuine things, things that required something of you, things that cost you something real. And I see what those things have produced in you, which is a quality that I can only describe as refined. You are not the same person you were when this season began. You are deeper. You are more patient in ways you do not fully recognize, because patience lived from the inside does not always feel like a virtue. It feels like endurance. But from where I am standing, the endurance looks like gold. It looks like exactly the kind of substance that I designed for the specific work that is ahead of you. And the work ahead of you is significant. It is not small. It is not the kind of thing you will look back on in 5 years and think was a minor chapter. It is the chapter that the rest of the story depends on, and you are more ready for it than you know. I want to close this part of what I am saying to you with something I want you to carry forward. I am not finished with you. I want you to hold that, not as a correction, not as pressure, not as a reminder of what you still have not accomplished, as an assurance, as the best possible news. I am not finished with you means that the story is not over. It means that what has happened so far is not the conclusion. It means that the chapters that have felt the hardest and the longest and the most confusing are not the chapters the story will be remembered by. The chapters that are coming, the ones that are even now being written in the unseen realm, are going to carry such a different weight than what you have been walking in, that the contrast itself will be one of the most extraordinary things you have ever experienced. Stay present for those chapters. Stay here. Stay with me. They are coming. My child, I want to speak to the specific weight that you are carrying in your body right now, because I know the weariness is not only a thing of the mind. It lives in your shoulders, in the place between your shoulder blades where tension settles and stays. It lives in your chest, in the slight tightness that you have learned to breathe around because it has been there so long that you have stopped thinking of it as something that should not be there. It lives in your jaw, in the subtle holding you do even in sleep. It lives in your eyes, which have been carrying behind them the weight of seeing more than you can always process and continuing to function regardless. I see all of that. The body keeps a record of what the heart has been through, and I am speaking healing into all of it, not just the spiritual dimension but the whole of you, because you are a whole person, and I am a God who heals whole people, not just the parts that are easy to access. I was there in the moments when your body told you before your mind did that something was wrong. That quiet internal alarm that preceded a clarity you did not want. I was there when you pushed through physical exhaustion to meet the needs of people who mattered to you, when you smiled through headaches and showed up through illness and kept moving when the most natural thing in the world would have been to stop. I saw every one of those moments, the ones that no one gave you credit for, the ones that looked unremarkable from the outside but required something substantial from the inside. I want you to know that I gave you the capacity for those moments. And I want you to know that the season in which that capacity is constantly called upon to simply survive is changing into a season in which that capacity is going to be the source of extraordinary things, things built and created and offered, rather than things merely endured. What I have been saying to you across this entire message is building towards something specific. I am not simply here to comfort you. I am here to reorient you, to shift the angle from which you are viewing your own life so that when we reach what I have prepared to show you, you can receive it with the full openness it requires. And I am getting closer. Stay with me. My child, I want to talk to you now about the unseen war that has been fought over your life. I do not say this to frighten you. I say it because understanding it is part of what you need in order to interpret your own story accurately. There has been a sustained and deliberate effort to keep you from reaching the place I designed you for, and that effort has not been random. It has been specifically targeted because the enemy of your soul is not indifferent to you. His attention to your life is actually a backward form of testimony to what I have placed inside you. He does not invest his resources in people who are not significant. He invests them in people whose potential, if fully realized, represents a genuine threat to his agenda. You have been a target, my child. I know that word carries weight and I am using it deliberately. You have been a target not because you are weak, but because you carry something that he is afraid of. The anointing on your life, the gifts I placed in you before you were born, the calling I wrote over you before you drew your first breath, all of that represents a power that will touch other lives and pull other people out of the darkness that he is working to keep them in. And so he has worked against you. He has worked to keep you small. He has worked to keep you busy with survival so that you never have the space or the energy to step into the larger thing. He has worked to dim your belief in yourself, to damage your relationships, to create circumstances that keep your focus on managing difficulty rather than building the life you were made for. But here is what he cannot do. He cannot alter what I have written. He cannot change what I have designed. He can delay, and he can distort, and he can discourage, but he cannot erase. And every delay he has manufactured has actually been used by me. I have turned his delays into preparation. I have turned his obstacles into the very elements that are making you stronger and more capable and more equipped for the larger thing than you would have been without the opposition. He meant to diminish you. I used it to refine you. And the refinement is now complete enough that what he has been trying to prevent is no longer preventable. I want you to understand what spiritual warfare actually looks like in the life of a person like you, because I think you may have been experiencing it without recognizing it for what it was. Spiritual warfare is not always dramatic. It does not always arrive as something that clearly announces itself as evil. More often, it arrives as a pervasive sense of limitation, a recurring feeling that the things you most deeply want to do are just slightly out of reach. a pattern of effort that produces diminishing returns, a tiredness that does not respond to ordinary rest, a subtle but persistent discouragement that follows you from season to season, lighter in some moments and heavier in others, but never fully absent, a nagging suspicion that the version of your life that feels most real is smaller than the version that lives in your heart. All of that has an origin, and the origin is not inside you. The origin is an enemy who has spent years building a careful perimeter around your potential, keeping you circling inside a smaller space than you were made for, using the evidence of your own experience of constraint to convince you that the constraint is structural rather than imposed. My child, the constraint is imposed. It is not who you are. It is not the upper limit of what your life can become. It is a series of walls that the enemy has built, and I am in the process of bringing every single one of them down. Let me tell you about the people in your life who were sent by the enemy to confuse or delay or wound you, because I want to free you from any remaining weight those people carry in your memory. They came with a purpose that was not my purpose. They came to take things from you, to use what you gave freely in ways that were not what you intended, to leave you with a message about your own worth that was not true. I know the specifics. I know which relationships I am speaking of, and I want to tell you something about those people that will give you a different relationship with what happened. They were not operating freely. They were being used in ways that they may not have even been fully conscious of, instruments of a strategy that had nothing to do with you personally and everything to do with what you carry and where you are going. The things that were taken from you in those relationships were not taken permanently. What was taken is in the process of being restored, not the specific things necessarily, but the substance, the capacity, the confidence, the openness, the wholeness. I am restoring all of it. My beloved, I need you to hear what I am about to say with both the intellectual and the intuitive parts of you. I need every part of you listening. What you have survived is not the sum of your story. It is the credential of it. The places you have come through are the reason that when you speak, people will listen. Not because you have all the answers, not because your life has been without difficulty, but because you have been in the difficulty and you did not let it become the final word. That is a rare thing. That is the kind of thing that I use to build something that actually lasts. I do not build with people who have never been tested. I build with people who have been tested and who kept showing up anyway. You kept showing up, and that means you are exactly the person I can use to do what I have in mind. And what I have in mind for your life is more than you are currently allowing yourself to believe. My child, I want to spend a moment with you on the subject of the people who have prayed for you. You may not know all of their names. Some of them you know, some of them you would not expect. Some of them are people you have encountered briefly, who felt a pull toward you in a moment that they could not fully explain, and who carried you to me in the quiet of their own prayer time without you knowing that it was happening. There have been intercessions made over your life by people who never told you about them, by people who may not even be alive anymore, whose prayers went up on your behalf and whose investment in your destiny is part of what is fueling what is about to arrive. You are not as alone in the unseen realm as you have felt in the visible one. There is a community of prayer surrounding your life that you cannot see, but that is absolutely real and absolutely active and absolutely connected to what I am building on your behalf. I also want to speak about the prayers you have prayed yourself, the ones that have felt ineffective, the ones that seem to land on the ceiling and stay there, the ones that you sent up with everything you had and then waited for a response that did not come in the form you expected. I want you to know something about every single one of those prayers. They were received. Every single one. Not one of them evaporated. Not one of them failed to arrive where they were going. They reached me. They are in me. And they are part of the accumulation, the building account, the gathered momentum of faith and hope and genuine seeking that is behind what is about to be released into your life. Your prayers have not been wasted. Your faith has not been misplaced. What you have been building through the act of continuing to turn toward me even when the turning felt like it was producing nothing has been building something real and substantial and specific. And the moment of its release is now, not someday, not eventually, now. The enemy has tried to convince you that your prayers go unheard. He has tried to use the silence and the delay and the gap between asking and receiving to build a case for the futility of prayer in your specific situation. He wants you to stop. He wants you to conclude that prayer works for other people, but that something about you, your history or your doubt or your unresolved stuff, means that the pipeline from your heart to my heart is blocked or broken or unreliable. That is a lie. My child, the pipeline is not blocked. The pipeline is not broken. I am on the other end of every single prayer you have ever sent. I have received every word, and the answer is coming. The answer is already in motion. What looks from your side like silence is from my side a symphony of activity, everything aligned, everything positioned, everything being held at the precise moment of fullness that will produce what I have intended. My child, I want to tell you about a figure from history who knew exactly what you are feeling right now. His name was Joseph. He was a young man who had received a genuine promise about his future, a dream so clear and so vivid that he held it with the certainty of someone who had received a direct communication from the divine. And then his life went in the opposite direction. He was betrayed by the people who should have protected him. He was sold. He was imprisoned for something he did not do. He spent years in a place that was entirely inconsistent with the promise he had received, and there was no explanation given. There was no divine voice in the prison saying, "I know this is not what you expected, but hold on, there is a reason." There was just the silence and the walls and the waiting and the years that accumulated without the thing he had been shown arriving. And then, in a single moment, everything changed. Not gradually, not incrementally. In one conversation, in one decision by someone with the authority to release what had been held back, Joseph went from the prison to the palace. And when it happened, every single element of the years in between, the betrayal, the false accusation, the unjust imprisonment, all of it was suddenly visible as the necessary preparation for the specific position he was about to occupy. He could not have handled the position without the prison. The prison was not the enemy of his destiny. The prison was the classroom for it. My child, I am telling you this because your life rhymes with this story in ways that matter. You have held a genuine knowing of what you were made for, and you have lived through seasons that seemed entirely inconsistent with that knowing. Seasons that felt more like prison than like palace. And I want to tell you, with the same authority that I spoke to Joseph in his time, that the prison season is ending. The preparation is complete. And the moment of transition, the conversation in the hallway, the door that opens unexpectedly, the single development that changes the whole trajectory, that moment is approaching. I cannot always give you the exact date, but I can tell you the season. And the season is now. Let me tell you about another person whose story carries something for you. Her name was Ruth. She found herself in a place of genuine devastation, having lost not just her husband but the future she had built her expectations around. She was a foreigner in a land that did not owe her anything. She had nothing to trade on, no family connections, no position, no strategy for advancement that the world would have recognized as viable. All she had was her faithfulness and her willingness to stay when staying was the harder choice. She could have gone back to the familiar. She could have chosen safety over the unknown. But she chose to stay with the person she was committed to walk into the uncertain place rather than retreat to the known one. And in that faithfulness, in that seemingly small and unremarkable decision to stay rather than leave, she walked directly into a destiny that exceeded anything she could have requested or imagined. The man who would become her husband and her provision and her future was already in the field. She did not know it when she entered. She was just showing up. She was just being faithful to what was in front of her. And that faithfulness placed her exactly where I needed her to be when the moment arrived. My child, your faithfulness in the ordinary places, your showing up, your continuing when continuing is hard, your staying when leaving would have been easier, that faithfulness is placing you, right now, in exactly the position where what I have prepared is going to find you. I want to tell you about David, who was anointed king and then went back to the sheep. He received a real word about his real destiny and then returned to the smallest version of his current life and waited. He did not immediately occupy the throne. He did not march to Jerusalem and announce that the anointing had come. He went back to the pasture. He tended the animals. He played his instrument in the quiet of the hillside. And in that ordinary, invisible time, he was developing something that the throne would require, a patience, a sense of complete dependence on me rather than on his own maneuvering, a quality of character that the public seasons of his life would later prove was real, precisely because it had been formed in private, without an audience, without validation from anyone other than me. Your private season, my child, the one that has felt invisible and unremarkable and too long, has been doing the same thing in you. It has been forming in you what the public season will require of you. And the public season, The one where what I have placed inside you gets to do what it was placed there to do. That season is coming, not eventually. It is coming now. I can tell you that with certainty because I know the timeline I designed, and you are in the final preparation, not the middle of an indefinite wait. You are at the end of the in-between. The pasture time is concluding. I want you to sit with these stories for a moment before I continue, not as inspiration in the general sense, as mirrors, as reflections of your own journey, told through people who walked the same pattern before you, and who reached the other side of it and looked back and could see the whole of it from a different angle. You are in a story that has a precedent. You are in a pattern that I have used before and that I know how to complete. The prison seasons in my stories never end with the person still in prison. The wilderness seasons in my stories always eventually give way to the promised land. The hidden seasons always precede the revealed seasons, always. Not sometimes, always. And you are not the exception to this pattern. You are one more example of it. And the example is about to reach the part where the pattern completes. My child, let me expand on what these stories mean for you in a very practical way, because I do not want the stories to remain beautiful abstractions. I want them to become lenses through which you read your own current moment. Joseph did not know the plan while he was in the pit. He did not know the palace was coming while he was in the prison. He had the original promise, but the gap between the promise and the fulfillment was filled with experiences that made the promise look, at times, like it must have been wrong. Ruth did not know she was walking into her future when she walked into the field where Boaz worked. She was just being faithful with what was in front of her. David did not know the exact day the call to the throne would come. He just kept being faithful in the pasture. What each of them shared was a willingness to keep going without a confirmed timeline, a willingness to trust the promise through the process, a willingness to let me work without requiring that I explain every step of the working before it happened. And I am asking the same thing of you right now, my child. Not for the rest of your life, not for another decade, right now, in this specific season. I am asking you to hold the promise and trust the process, and let me work in the spaces that you cannot see, knowing with the certainty that you have heard what I have said in this message today, that I am working, that I have a plan, that the plan is good, and that you are standing in the final stretch of the preparation time. I also want to say something about hope itself, because I think hope has been damaged in you in a way that needs to be specifically addressed before we go further. You have hoped before and watched the thing you hoped for not arrive, and that experience has left a mark. It has created a kind of pre-protective mechanism where you begin to hope for something and then immediately brace yourself for the disappointment that experience has taught you often follows. You have learned to hold hope at a slight distance, to want things without fully investing in the wanting, to guard yourself from the specific pain of hoping fully and having the full hope meet a closed door. I understand why you do that. It is a completely understandable response to a real experience of loss, but I want to invite you, in this moment, to let your guard down, just slightly, just enough for what I am about to say to get all the way in, because what is coming requires you to be able to receive it fully, and you can only receive fully with hands that are open. My beloved child, I want to tell you about a man named Elijah. He was one of the most powerful voices I have ever raised up. He called down fire from heaven. He stood against an entire government that had turned away from me, and he did not flinch. He was, by every external measure, a person of extraordinary spiritual authority and genuine faith. And then, when he had just come through the greatest victory of his life, he collapsed. He sat under a tree in the wilderness and told me he was done. He said it was enough. He said he had given everything he had and he had nothing left and he wanted to stop. I did not correct him in that moment. I did not stand over him with a list of everything he still had to accomplish. I did not remind him of his destiny or his calling or the things that still needed to be done. I let him sleep. And then I sent an angel to touch him, and the angel brought him food and water and said the exact 2 words that I have been saying to you throughout this entire message. The words were these: arise, eat, because the journey is too great for you. Not too great in the sense that you cannot complete it, too great in the sense that you cannot complete it on your own strength. You need something more than what you are currently running on. And what I was offering Elijah in that wilderness moment was not a spiritual lecture. It was bread and water. It was rest and restoration. It was the most practical kind of care for a person who had genuinely given everything and needed to be filled before they could continue. My child, I am saying the same thing to you right now. Arise, eat. The journey ahead of you is significant, and I am not sending you into it depleted. I am sending you into it filled. What I am doing in this message is part of that filling. Every word that has reached you, every truth that has landed somewhere in you, is nutrition for the road that is ahead. And the road ahead is not a road of continued difficulty in the same key you have been living. It is a road of a different quality entirely. The wilderness portion of your journey, the portion that looks from the inside like it might never end, is ending. What is on the other side is so different from what you have been walking through that you will need every ounce of what I am pouring into you right now in order to be able to receive it. Let me continue the biblical journey with you, because the pattern I am drawing from these stories is building towards something I want you to see fully. Think about Esther. She was a young woman who found herself in a position of extraordinary influence that she had never sought and was not entirely sure what to do with. She had been placed there through a series of events that, if you were watching from the outside, would have appeared to be nothing more than an unlikely sequence of coincidences. But I was orchestrating every step. I was moving the pieces. I was placing her in position for a moment that had not yet arrived, a moment that, when it came, would require everything she had and everything she had become in the preparation. When the moment came, the instruction she received was both terrifying and clarifying. You have come to the kingdom for such a time as this. My child, I want to say those words over you right now. You have come to this moment for such a time as this, not a generic time, this specific time. The circumstances you are in right now, the particular combination of gifts and history and refined character and specific experience that you bring to this moment, that combination is not accidental, it is designed. You are positioned exactly where you need to be positioned for what is about to unfold. And the thing that is about to unfold is not something you stumbled into. I have been building toward it for years. There is a thread running through all of these stories, my child, that I want you to see clearly. Joseph, Ruth, David, Elijah, Esther. In every case, the moment of destiny arrived not when they had manufactured it through their own effort, but when they were simply in the place where I had put them, doing what was in front of them to do, and the moment found them. None of them forced the door. None of them pushed so hard against the timing that they broke through before I was ready. Some of them tried, in their moments of impatience, and the results of those attempts were always complicated at best. But when they aligned themselves with the rhythm of my timing rather than their own, when they released the control of the outcome and simply stayed faithful in the present moment, that is when the extraordinary thing happened. I am not telling you to be passive. I am not telling you to stop working or stop praying or stop showing up with everything you have. I am telling you to do all of those things without the desperate white-knuckle grip that makes them feel like striving rather than faithfulness. There is a different quality to the kind of showing up that trusts me versus the kind that is secretly trying to force my hand. The first kind is powerful. The second kind is exhausting. And I think you know the difference from the inside, because you have done both at different times. I am inviting you back into the first kind, the kind that works and prays and shows up and then releases the outcome to me with a genuine peace that I will handle what it cannot. My child, something I want to say very directly before we move to the next part of this message. The things that have not yet arrived in your life are not late. They are not behind schedule. They are on the schedule that I designed, and that schedule is not the one you would have drawn if you had been given the pen. I know that is a frustrating thing to hear when you are in the middle of wanting something with everything you have and not yet seeing it. I understand the frustration. I am not dismissing it. I am acknowledging it, and I am asking you to choose to trust me through it anyway. Not because trust is easy, but because trust is what opens the door to the fullness of what I have prepared. A heart that is contracted around distrust cannot receive the full measure of what I want to pour into it. A heart that is genuinely open, even when openness is hard, even when it costs something to remain open. That heart is the one that is ready to receive what is coming. And I need you to be ready, because it is coming. My beloved, I want to speak to something very specific in your heart right now. I know that there is a version of this message that you could hear and appreciate and even feel moved by, and then set down when the session ends and return to the familiar weight of the same uncertainty. I know that because I know you, and I know how easy it is for a person to receive truth intellectually without letting it reach the places that actually need it. So, I am being very specific and very deliberate in what I am asking you to do with what I am saying. I am asking you to let it actually reach you, not to process it and file it, not to receive it as information, to let it reach the place in you that makes decisions about what is possible. the place that decides every morning whether today is a day to hope or a day to simply survive. I want what I am saying to reach that place and to begin to shift it, because when it shifts, everything shifts. The same external circumstances look different through different internal eyes, and what I am building right now is different internal eyes for you. Let me tell you what those different eyes see when they look at your life. They see a person who has been in an intensive preparation that is nearly complete. They see someone who has developed, through the difficulty of the season they have been in, a combination of capacities that are extraordinarily valuable for what is ahead. They see the very close proximity of a shift that is going to make the wait seem, in retrospect, not just acceptable but genuinely necessary. They see a life that is about to have a different quality than it has had, not just in circumstances but in the ability to appreciate what those circumstances contain, because the person who receives good things after a genuine season of difficulty receives them in a depth of gratitude and presence that a person who has never struggled cannot access. I am not asking you to be grateful for the suffering. I am telling you that the suffering has given you a capacity to receive joy that is actually greater than it would have been without it. And the joy that is coming is going to fill that capacity fully. My child, I want to speak now about the gifts I placed inside you before you were born. I am not speaking in generalities. I am speaking about specific things that you carry, things that manifest as the way you see the world, the way you notice what others miss, the way you feel other people's experiences in your own chest before they even find words for what they are going through, the way you find language for complex things, the way you hold space for difficulty without collapsing under it, the way your instincts about people are more accurate than you typically give them credit for, the way you build things, whether that is relationships or ideas or environments or trust, with a particular kind of care and integrity that is not universal but is absolutely yours. Those gifts did not come from your environment, though your environment has shaped how they have developed. They did not come from what you have worked to acquire, though you have worked hard and the work has mattered. They came from me. I placed them in you before your first breath. I designed them specifically for the work I intended you to do in the world. And here is what I want you to understand about those gifts in this season. They have not diminished. They may feel diminished. The season of difficulty and pressure and constrained expression may have made them feel less accessible than they were at moments when you were more free to use them fully. But they have not shrunk. They have not left. They are intact, every single one of them. And they are now more refined and more powerful than they were before the difficult season, because difficulty has a way of burning away the parts of a gift that were still rough and unformed, and revealing the core of what it actually is at full capacity. I want to speak about one gift in particular that I see very clearly in you, the gift of insight, not the kind that comes from having studied something thoroughly, though that kind of knowledge compounds what I am describing. The kind that arrives before the studying, the way of seeing into the heart of a thing or the heart of a person that other people have to work hard to find and that you experience as simply the way things appear to you when you look at them. You have sometimes discounted this gift because it arrived too easily to feel like a gift. You thought perhaps everyone saw things this way, and it took you a while to realize that they did not. You thought perhaps what you were seeing was not reliable because it was intuitive rather than derived, and the world around you valued derived things more than intuitive ones. So you learned to hold your insights more loosely than they deserved, to qualify them before you expressed them, to wait for the externally verifiable evidence before you gave the internal knowing the authority it actually had. I want to restore that gift to its full operation in you. I want you to begin to trust what you see again, not recklessly, not without wisdom, but with the confidence that comes from knowing that what I placed in you is reliable, that the way I designed you to perceive things is a feature and not a bug, that the insight that arrives in you before the data is not a guess but a transmission, and that learning to work with it again rather than against it is part of what prepares you for what is coming. My child, I also want to speak about your voice, the voice that you use to speak to others, whether in literal conversation or through writing or through any medium you work in. Your voice carries something that I put there. It carries a warmth and a weight together that is not a combination that is common. Many voices can be warm. Many voices can carry authority. The combination of the two, the ability to be genuinely present with another person in their difficulty while also bringing them into contact with something larger than themselves, that is, a specific thing that I designed for a specific purpose, and it has not been used at its full capacity yet. The season you are in has been a compressed season for your voice, a season where circumstances and energy and the demands of survival have kept your voice operating at a fraction of what it is capable of. What is coming is a season where the compression releases, where the things that have constrained your voice, the circumstances, the uncertainty, the weariness that makes full expression feel too expensive, are no longer the dominant environment. What is coming is a season where what is in you has room to fully move, and when it moves, it will move things. I did not design your voice for a small audience. I did not design your gifts for a small impact. What I placed in you was designed with a reach in mind that you have not yet fully seen, and that reach is what this season of preparation has been equipping you for. I want to address something now that is very close to the surface for you, the question of whether it is too late, the question that visits you in quiet moments and insists on being considered. The question that looks at the gap between where you are and where you have dreamed of being and whispers that the window has closed, that the years that have passed represent an opportunity that cannot be recovered, that the version of your life where the things I placed in you reach their full expression was a version that required an earlier starting point than you now have. I want to address this question directly and completely. It is not too late. I want to say that again. It is not too late. There is no clock in my purposes that runs on the timeline of the world. There is no expiration date on what I designed you for. The window has not closed. The window is open, and the light that is coming through it is available to you right now, at this exact age, in this exact season, with everything that has happened in the years behind you included and accounted for. I made a way for your full purpose to be reached in your actual life, not some ideal version of it that required everything to go differently in your actual life. Starting now. My child, let me tell you something about what the years behind you have produced that you will only fully understand when you look back from the other side of what is coming. The difficulty you walk through has given you a specific kind of authority, not the authority of position or title or accomplishment, though those things may come, the authority that comes from experience, the authority that arrives in a voice when the person speaking has actually been in the place they are speaking about. There is a quality of presence in a person who has suffered genuinely and emerged from it that cannot be manufactured or performed or acquired through study. It has to be lived, and you have lived it. Every season that felt like too much, every night that stretched too long, every moment of wondering whether you were going to make it, all of that has been deposited into you as the kind of authentic knowing that changes people when they encounter it. You carry it now, and you will use it. The people who will encounter you in the season that is coming will encounter someone who has been somewhere, someone who understands from the inside what it feels like to be in the in-between and to not be sure it will resolve. Someone who held on not because it was easy, but because something deeper than ease demanded it. And that understanding will be exactly what some of them need at exactly the moment they encounter you. I do not build with theories, I build with experience. And your experience is material that I intend to use in ways that will make its cost finally feel not just bearable but purposeful. Every hard thing you have been through has been making you into a more useful, more present, more compassionate, more genuine version of the person I designed you to be, and that person is now needed, right now, in the world that you are about to step more fully into. My child, I want to shift the tone of what I am saying to you now. We have been in the deep places together, in the pain and the waiting and the questions and the grief. And now I want to begin to bring you up out of those places and into something different, not because the deep places are not real or important, they are, but because you were not designed to live there permanently, and because what I have for you in the elevated places is something I cannot wait any longer to begin to speak about. There is a shift that has been building in the unseen realm around your life for longer than you know. I have been preparing it quietly, assembling the elements, positioning the people, aligning the circumstances, waiting for the fullness of the right moment, the way a conductor waits for the precise beat to bring the orchestra in. The conductor is not passive while waiting. The conductor is fully present, fully attentive, holding everything in ready position for the exact moment when the music requires it. That is what I have been doing around your life. Everything is in position, everything is ready, and the beat has arrived. The things that I have been holding in ready position for you are about to move. I want to tell you what a shift looks like when it comes from me, because I think you may be looking for it in the wrong places. You may be looking for it as a dramatic reversal of your circumstances, a sudden and obvious change that announces itself clearly as the breakthrough you have been waiting for. Sometimes I work that way. Sometimes the shift comes dramatically and undeniably and leaves no question about what has happened, but more often the shift begins small. It begins as a door that opens unexpectedly in a place you were not looking, a conversation that takes an unexpected turn, a thought that arrives with a clarity you have not had before, a provision that comes through a channel you did not anticipate, a relationship that begins in an unremarkable way and reveals its significance only over time. The shift begins in a way that is easy to miss if you are not paying attention. I am training you right now to pay attention. I am heightening your sensitivity to the small beginnings of large things. I am expanding the range of your expectancy so that you can receive the shift in whatever form it chooses to arrive, rather than only recognizing it if it comes in the specific form you have decided breakthrough looks like. This is important, my child. Some of my most significant moves in the lives of my children have been initially invisible to them because they were looking so hard for the dramatic version that they missed the quiet beginning of the real thing. I do not want that to happen with you. I want you to be awake to the full range of ways that what is coming can arrive, so that when it does, you are ready to receive it and steward it well. Let me speak about stewardship for a moment, because it is something I want you to begin thinking about now, in advance of the shift arriving. What I am releasing into your life is not just for you to receive. It is for you to steward, to tend, to multiply and extend and offer back to a world that needs what you are going to have access to. My blessings are not endpoints. They are resources. They are the raw material of what I have designed you to build, give, create, and release into the lives of the people around you. And the capacity to steward them well is something I have been building in you through exactly the season you have been in. The difficulty has made you thoughtful. It has made you careful. It has made you the kind of person who does not take good things for granted because you know from experience what it is like to need them. That quality of stewardship is exactly what this season has been growing in you. My child, I want to speak about the specific things you have been believing for, the particular prayers that have been in your heart for a long time and have not yet seen their answer. I am not going to give you a precise timeline for each one. What I am going to give you is something more valuable than a timeline. I am going to give you the absolute certainty that I have not forgotten a single one of them. Not the one you stop praying out loud but still feel every day in the quiet of your chest. Not the one you have prayed for so long that you have started to feel embarrassed by how persistent you still are in asking for it. Not the small one that you feel you should not bother me with because there are larger things in the world that need attention. I have received every single one. I hold every single one in my full awareness. And the ones that have not yet arrived are not waiting because I have forgotten them or deprioritized them. They are waiting for the fullness of the right moment, which is not the same as waiting forever. And the fullness of the right moment, for more of what you have been carrying than you currently realize, is closer than you think, closer than the enemy has wanted you to believe, closer than your experience of the wait would suggest. Things are about to start moving that have been still for a long time. Things that felt immovable are about to shift. And when they begin to shift, they are going to shift in a way that is unmistakably from me, because what I do in my timing bears a quality that human effort and human strategy alone cannot produce. It carries a wholeness to it, a rightness, a sense of everything connecting and nothing being missing that is the signature of my work when it arrives at its appointed time. You are standing at the threshold of that timing, my child. Not behind it, not still in the waiting room, at the threshold. The door is open, the light is on. What is on the other side of that threshold is the life that the deepest part of you has always known was possible. And I am standing there, on the other side, with my hand extended, asking you to step through. Not tomorrow, not when everything makes more sense. Now, in this moment, with everything you are carrying and everything you have been through and everything you still do not fully understand, step through. I have you. I will not let you fall. What is on the other side is worth every single difficult step it took to reach the place where you are standing. My child, I want to close this part of what I am saying to you with a very specific declaration. I am speaking it now not as a comfort but as a prophetic announcement, because I have the authority to announce what I have designed, and what I have designed for you is good. I declare over your life right now that the season of narrowness is ending. The season in which your gifts were compressed and your vision was limited by the constraints of your circumstances is closing. What is opening in its place is a season of expansion, not modest expansion. not incremental improvement. Expansion that will feel, in the early days of it, like a reversal so complete that you will have to adjust your understanding of what your life actually is. I declare that relationships that were meant for you and that circumstances have kept from arriving are now finding their way to you. That the loneliness you have carried is not your permanent condition but a temporary one that is ending. That connections are being formed in the unseen realm right now between your life and the lives of people who are going to be significant to you, people who carry things that complement what you carry, people who are going to recognize in you what I place there without you having to explain or qualify or prove it first. They are coming. Some of them are already closer to entering your life than you know. I declare that provision is opening up for you in ways that you have not fully expected, that the financial pressure that has been part of the weight of this season is not a permanent feature of your landscape, but a condition that is changing, that I am arranging provision through channels you are not currently watching, through opportunities you have not yet anticipated, through the movement of things in the unseen realm that will produce visible results in ways and at a timing that will carry the unmistakable signature of my hand. I am not leaving the practical dimensions of your life unaddressed. I see them, I am moving in them. And what I am moving toward in the practical dimensions of your life is a stability and a sufficiency that will give you the freedom to operate fully in the things I have called you to. Stay open, stay expecting. The declaration has been made. My child, hear me now. The waiting season is closing. I am not saying that to comfort you with a vague future hope. I am saying it as a declaration that has already been decided in the realm where I operate. What you have experienced as delay is not the final word of your story. The final word of your story has already been written, and it is not a word of defeat. It is not a word of limitation. It is not a word that says you came this far and this far is where you stop. The final word of your story is a word of completion, of fullness, of arrival, and the path from where you are to that final word is now the shortest it has ever been. I want to speak about what breakthrough actually feels like, because I think part of the difficulty of waiting is that you have been trying to sustain a picture of what it will look like when it comes, and the sustaining of that picture over a long time has worn you down. The anticipation has become its own kind of exhaustion. So let me release you from the obligation of holding that picture perfectly. Let me take the weight of the anticipation from your hands and carry it for you. Your only assignment right now is to be here, in this moment, with me, receiving what I am saying. The management of the how and the when is mine. The receiving is yours. When breakthrough comes, my child, it will come in a way that you will recognize as undeniably from me. Not because it will be dramatic in the way the world defines dramatic, though it may carry elements of the unexpected. It will be undeniable because it will fit. Because it will address the specific things in the specific ways that only a mind with complete knowledge of your situation and complete love for your good could address. It will feel tailored. It will feel seen. It will feel like arriving after a long journey at a place that was always waiting for you, even though you could not see it from the road. And in that moment, you will understand not just that I came through, but that I was coming through the entire time. That every closed door and every silence and every difficulty was not me withholding from you, but me preparing for you. The thing that has been resisting you, the wall that has been standing between where you are and where I have called you to be, is not as solid as it has appeared. I want to tell you what it is actually made of, because understanding the material of a wall changes your relationship with it. The wall is made of unbelief, not your unbelief entirely. I am not placing blame on you for the size of the wall. It is made of the accumulated unbelief of everyone who spoke into your life in ways that built a smaller frame for you than the one I designed. Every voice that said you were too much or not enough. Every disappointment that got interpreted as evidence of your limitation. Every comparison that concluded in your disfavor. Every season of difficulty that, in the absence of a clear explanation, seemed to suggest that the good things were simply not going to be for you. All of that accumulated into a wall, and I am dissolving it. Not with force, exactly, with truth. Because when truth arrives in sufficient measure, the wall that is built of unbelief has no foundation to stand on, and it comes down. The truth I am speaking over you right now, this message that I arranged with such specific intention to reach you at this exact moment, is the instrument of the dissolution. Every true thing I have said to you is removing a brick. The wall is coming down, my child. You may not feel it dramatically in this moment, though you may, but I am telling you with complete certainty that something has shifted in you in the course of this message that was not shifted before it began. Something is opened. Something that was contracted has begun to release. Something that was locked has found a key. I am the key, and I have let myself in. My beloved, I want to build on what I just declared with something even more specific. The door I am opening in your life right now is a door to a season that you are going to need to be prepared for. Not just emotionally, not just spiritually, in every dimension. Because the season that is coming is going to require a version of you that is more fully yourself than you have been in a long time. More confident, more present, more willing to occupy the full space of who you are without apologizing for it or shrinking from it or waiting for someone else to give you permission to stand in what I have already given you permission to stand in. The preparation I have been doing in you has been preparing you for exactly this, for the confidence that is not arrogance but authority, for the presence that is not performance but genuineness, for the occupation of your full space, the full reach of your gifts, the full expression of what I placed in you that makes the impact I designed you to make on the world. You are ready for this, my child. I know you do not feel ready. I know the gap between who you feel like you are and who I am calling you to be feels significant from the inside. But I am not calling you to become someone else. I am calling you to become more fully who you already are, and the most you version of you is exactly the version the world needs right now. Not a polished, perfect, have-it-all-together version. The real you, the tested you, the one who has been in the fire and emerged refined. That is the one I am calling forward, and that is the one the world has been waiting for. My child, let me speak plainly about what I see when I look at the life that is available to you right now, in this season, beginning from where you are standing. I see abundance where there has been lack, not in the someday sense, but in the present tense sense of things already in motion that have not yet fully materialized in the visible world, but that are absolutely real in the realm where I work. I see relationships that are being directed toward you right now, people who carry exactly what you need and who need exactly what you carry, and who are going to arrive in ways that feel naturally occurring but that I have specifically arranged. I see doors of opportunity that are standing open in places you have not yet looked, places that are accessible to the version of you that has been formed through this season and that would not have been accessible to the version of you that existed before it. I see your health being addressed in ways that you have not fully tracked but that are real. I see the fatigue that has been part of your daily experience lifting as the weight of the things I am removing is actually removed and no longer has to be carried. I see a lightness returning to you that you may have forgotten was ever yours. I see creativity reawakening in places that pressure and survival mode had put to sleep. I see your laughter coming back more easily. Your capacity for joy, which has been suppressed by the weight of the season, returning to something closer to its natural level. These are not fantasies, my child. These are the natural results of what happens when a person comes out of a sustained difficult season into one that is genuinely different. The body responds, the spirit responds, the mind responds. All of it opens again, and what opens in the next season for you is going to be more beautiful than you are currently able to fully imagine. I am bringing this part of our conversation to a crescendo on purpose, because what I am about to say to you next is the part of this message that I have been building toward from the very beginning. The part where what has been spiritual and emotional becomes also practical, where the truth I have been speaking over you connects with something very specific that I have placed in your path, and I need you to be as fully open as possible when we arrive there, which means I need to complete the work of clearing in your heart that I have been doing in this part. Let the last remaining doubt that I am for you dissolve. Let the last remaining suspicion that your situation is the exception to my promises release. Let the last remaining wall come down. I am on the other side of it, and what I have for you is very close now. My child, I want to do something in this part of our time together that I have not done yet in this message. I want to take you somewhere, not back into the difficult past, and not into a vague and general better future. I want to take you to a specific scene that I want you to see with me. I want you to enter it, to feel the texture of it, to let it become real to you, because what I am about to show you is not imagination. It is the future that is already written. It is the reality that exists in the realm where I work, and that is in the process of making its way into the realm where you live. See yourself in a morning that is different from the mornings you have been waking into. The quality of the morning itself is different. There is a lightness to the air in the room that is not just atmospheric. It is the lightness of a person whose internal landscape has shifted. You wake, and the first thing that arrives is not the familiar weight, not the inventory of what is still unresolved and what is still uncertain and what needs to be addressed today. What arrives first is a quiet confidence, not an arrogant confidence, a settled one. The kind that does not need to announce itself, because it does not need to prove anything. You know who you are in this morning. You know who I am. And you know, in a way that does not require argument or effort to maintain, that you are in the right place, and that the right things are in motion, and that I am for you in every dimension of your life. In this morning, you get up and you look at your day, and it looks different than days have looked recently, not because every problem has been solved, but because you are not living under the problems. You are living above them. They are in the picture, but they are not the frame. You are. What I placed in you is the frame, and the frame shapes everything inside it. See yourself a few months from now, in a conversation with someone who needed something that you have, not something you worked to acquire for the purpose of this conversation, something that you have simply because of the journey you have been on, because of what I deposited in you through the difficult season, because of the depth and the understanding and the genuine knowing that comes only from having actually been in hard places and having come through them without being destroyed. This person is sitting across from you. They are in a place that looks familiar because you were in it not long ago, and what you are able to offer them in this conversation is not theory, it is testimony. You know what it feels like from the inside. You know the specific texture of the doubt, and the specific weight of the silence, and the specific quality of hoping when hope feels dangerous. And because you know it, because you have lived it, what you say to them lands in a way that generic encouragement cannot. It reaches them in the room where they actually are, and something shifts in them in this conversation. Something that was closed opens, and that opening will change the trajectory of their life, and you will have been the instrument. That is what I made you for, my child. That is the kind of impact I designed your particular combination of gifts and experience to produce, not impact in a theoretical sense. Impact in the room where a real person is sitting with a real weight and a real need, and where you show up with what I have placed in you and something genuinely changes. That is the scale at which I work through my people. One life at a time, one conversation at a time. One moment of genuine contact between two human souls where I am present in the space between them, and something that was not possible before is suddenly possible. This is what you were made for, and this is what is coming. See yourself in a season of provision that is different from what you have been navigating. See the specific pressure that has been part of your financial reality lifting, not because you stopped caring about it or stopped working or found some way to become indifferent to the practical realities of your life, but because the channel of provision that I have been building has opened, and what flows through it is addressing the actual numbers, the actual needs, the actual practical realities of your daily life in ways that are specific and real and not vague. See yourself making decisions from a place of genuine sufficiency rather than from the constricted place that scarcity thinking creates. See yourself with the mental and emotional bandwidth that financial stability provides, bandwidth that is currently being consumed by the management of pressure, becoming available for the things I have placed on your heart to build and create and offer. See the difference in you when the practical is not consuming the whole of your attention. See the freedom that comes with that. That freedom is coming. That provision is in motion. I am building it even now. See yourself in the relationships that are coming, the ones that are being drawn to you by the same force that is drawing you toward the fullness of what I designed for you. People who recognize what you carry without you having to explain or demonstrate or prove it. People who add to you rather than consistently drawing from you. People who make you more fully yourself when you are around them rather than less. I have those relationships prepared for you. Some of them have not arrived yet because the timing was not right, and because you were not yet in the place you are going to be in when they arrive, the place that is coming, the more fully yourself place. The place on the other side of this message, on the other side of the shift that is happening in you right now, is where those relationships are going to find you, and they are going to feel like coming home. My child, I want you to stay in the scene for a moment longer. I want you to feel the specific quality of what it is like to be at rest in a life that is working, not a perfect life, not a life without challenge, but a life where the challenges are the challenges of someone who is in the right place doing the right things, rather than the challenges of someone who is surviving an extended season of things being genuinely misaligned. There is a different quality of difficulty between those two categories. The challenges of someone moving forward are generative. They produce growth and learning and the satisfaction of forward movement. The challenges of someone in a survival season are depleting in a different way. They produce endurance and depth, which are valuable. But they also produce a kind of hollowness that is not the natural state of a person who was designed for flourishing. The natural state I designed for you is not suffering. I want to be very clear about that. Suffering has been a teacher and a refiner in your life, and I have used it, but it was never the destination. The destination is flourishing. The destination is being fully alive, in the specific ways that I designed you to be fully alive, using your gifts, building things that matter, loving people with a love that is free rather than frightened, being at home in your own skin in a way that the pressure of the season you have been in has made difficult. That homecoming is what is coming for you. That return to the natural state of a person who knows they are loved and who knows they are purposed and who knows they are in the process of having that purpose fulfilled is what this entire message has been building toward. And it is close. It is very close. I want you to make a decision right now, in this moment, while what I have been saying is still fresh and real in you. I want you to decide to believe it, not conditionally, not with your fingers crossed waiting to see if it will prove true. I want you to decide, with the full weight of your will, to receive what I have spoken over you in this message as truth, as something real, as the actual word of the one who made you and who knows your story completely, and who is not in the business of offering beautiful lies to people who are hurting. I am offering you what is real, and I need you to receive it as real, because how you receive it determines what it can do in you. Truth received with belief becomes a seed that grows. Truth received with arms folded becomes information that passes through without landing. I am asking you to plant the seed, to choose to believe, right now, that what I have said is true, and then to watch what grows from it. My child, hear me now with your full attention, because this is the moment in this message where the tone shifts and what I am speaking becomes declaration rather than explanation. I have spent the earlier parts of this message meeting you in your pain and your waiting and your questions. I have been with you in the deep places. I have acknowledged what it has cost you to walk through what you have walked through. And now I am standing up and I am speaking differently. Not because the tenderness is over, the tenderness never leaves, but because tenderness alone is not what this moment calls for. This moment calls for the voice of what I actually am. The voice that spoke light into darkness, and it came. The voice that parted the water, and it moved. The voice that spoke over the dry bones, and they lived. That is the voice that is speaking to you right now. I declare over your life that the chains of the season you have been in are broken, not weakened, not loosened, broken. The weight that has been attached to you that was never yours to carry is being removed right now, in this moment, as you receive these words. The assignment of the enemy against your peace is canceled. The authority he claimed over your forward movement through the accumulated weight of disappointment and delay is revoked. He has no legal claim over your destiny. He never did. And the influence he has been exercising through the gaps in your belief, the places where his lies found enough purchase to take up residence, those gaps are being filled right now with truth. My truth, which is the only truth that stands when everything else is stripped away. I declare that the relationships you have been grieving, the connections that ended in ways that wounded you, are not the final chapter of your relational story. I am writing new chapters. I am sending people who carry the genuine article of what you were given counterfeits of in the relationships that hurt you. You will know the difference, not because you are more cynical now, but because you are more discerning. The difficulty taught you things that education cannot teach about what is real versus what only appears to be, and that discernment is going to serve you well in everything that is coming. I declare over the part of you that has been waiting for permission to take up space, to use your gifts without apology, to occupy the full room of who you are without shrinking to fit someone else's comfort, that the permission has been granted, not by a person, not by a circumstance, not by a level of achievement that finally unlocks the right to be fully yourself, by me, the one who made you, the one who designed the full version of you that you have been holding back from the world, the one who put that full version there on purpose, with an intention in mind that requires the full version to show up. You have permission to be who I made you to be, now, today, without waiting for everything to be resolved first. The version of you that is going to walk out of this season is going to be noticeable, not because you will be louder or more assertive or more self-promoting than you have been, because you will be more present. There is a quality of presence that comes from a person who has genuinely settled into themselves, who is no longer performing or proving or seeking external validation for what they already know internally to be true. That quality of presence is magnetic. It draws people and it draws circumstances. It changes rooms. It shifts conversations. It creates the kind of environment where things that were stuck get unstuck. And it is going to characterize you in the season that is coming, because it is the natural expression of a person who has received what I have been saying to you in this message and allowed it to settle into the places that make the decisions. I want to speak about the practical provision that is on its way to you, because I do not want what I am declaring to remain only in the spiritual and emotional realm. The provision that I am releasing into your life is specific. It addresses the real numbers of your real situation. It addresses the gap between what is coming in and what is going out. It addresses the pressure that has lived in your chest whenever you have had to look at your actual financial reality and reconcile it with the life you sense you were meant to be living. The provision is not coming in a form that requires you to do something unethical or something outside of who you are. It is coming through pathways that are consistent with who I made you to be. Through the gifts I placed in you expressing themselves in contexts that reward them. Through opportunities that arise in the natural flow of a life that is moving forward rather than circling in the same place. Through the favor that accompanies a person who is aligned with what I have for them. It is coming, my child. The financial chapter of your story is changing. And the change has already begun in the unseen realm. The visible evidence of it is on its way. My child, I want to return for a moment to something I said earlier about the gifts I placed inside you, because I want to connect it to what I am declaring now. The gifts are not going to express themselves in isolation from everything else I have been saying. They are going to express themselves in the context of a life that is shifting, and the shift is going to create the conditions that the gifts require in order to function at full capacity. There is a difference between a gift operating under pressure and a gift operating in freedom. A gift under pressure produces something, yes, but a gift in freedom produces something qualitatively different, more whole, more complete, more resonant, less tainted by the anxiety and the scarcity thinking that pressure injects into everything it touches. What you are going to produce in the season of freedom that is coming is going to carry a quality that is different from what you have been able to produce under the weight of this season. And that quality is going to be recognizable to you and to the people who encounter what you make. There is going to be a fullness to it that reflects a person who is finally operating from abundance rather than lack. I am also declaring something over your health that I want to be clear about. The tiredness that has been your companion is leaving. The specific kind of depletion that comes from sustained stress and sustained effort without adequate rest and recovery. The kind that accumulates over years rather than weeks. That depletion is being addressed. Not through a single dramatic event necessarily, though I work in dramatic events when I choose to. Through a gradual but genuine restoration of the reserves that have been drawn down. Through a return of the capacity to rest that pressure steals. Through the specific physical and emotional and spiritual renewal that comes when a person steps from a season of grinding into a season of genuine momentum. Momentum feels different in the body than grinding. It energizes rather than depletes. It produces more than it costs, and that is the quality of effort that is coming into your life. Effort that produces more than it costs. Work that energizes rather than exhausts. That is the season ahead, and it begins now. My child, I want to bring you now to the highest point of what I have to say to you in this message. We have been climbing together from the valley of where you have been, through the middle ground of understanding and declaration, and now we are at the summit. And from the summit, I want you to see clearly what I see when I look at your life and your future and the specific thing that I am about to reveal to you. You were chosen. I want to say that word and have it land rather than slide past, because it is a word that your experience has sometimes made it difficult to receive fully. You were chosen before the foundations of the world were laid, not randomly, not as part of a broad category, chosen specifically, deliberately, with full knowledge of every detail of the life you would live, the challenges you would face, the ways you would struggle, the ways you would grow, the gifts you would carry, the impact you were designed to make. All of that was known when you were chosen. And knowing all of it, I chose you anyway, not in spite of the difficult parts, sometimes through them, because I am not a God who can only work with people who have lived uncomplicated lives. I am a God who takes what the world calls broken and makes it into something that carries a beauty and a utility that the unbroken thing never could have. The choosing was not conditional on your performance. It was not based on you being good enough or faithful enough or strong enough. It was based on what I placed in you and what I intended to do through you, and the fact that I am fully capable of completing what I began regardless of the obstacles the enemy placed along the way. I am not surprised by anything that happened in your journey. I am not revising the plan because things went differently than you hoped in certain seasons. The plan has always accounted for the full reality of your life, and the plan is good. Hear me now, my child. The season you are stepping into is not a continuation of the season you have been in. It is not more of the same with minor improvements. It is a genuinely different chapter, one that has a different quality and a different momentum and a different feeling from the inside, not because the external circumstances are magically perfect, but because the internal landscape from which you are engaging those circumstances has fundamentally shifted. The shift is happening right now, in this moment, as you receive these words. Something in you is settling that has been unsettled for a long time. Something that was contracted is opening. Something that was waiting for permission is beginning to move. I can see it, and what I see is extraordinary. I want to speak to the deepest fear that lives in the most private room of your heart, the fear that you have not allowed yourself to fully voice because voicing it would make it feel more real and more possible, and the possibility of it is not something you want to sit with directly. The fear that perhaps the version of yourself that you most deeply hope is true, the version that I have been describing throughout this message, the purposeful, gifted, genuinely impactful version, perhaps that version is not actually real. Perhaps it is a story you have told yourself. Perhaps the objective truth is something smaller and more ordinary. I am going to step into that room right now, and I am going to speak directly to that fear, and I am going to say this: that fear is lying to you. The version I have been describing is not a story you told yourself. It is the version I told first, before you ever had words, before you ever had hopes. I spoke that version into being, and it is the truest thing about you. The difficult seasons did not reveal that it was false. They revealed that it is exactly as real as I said it was when I made you. Because things that are not real do not get the kind of opposition you have faced. Only things that are genuinely threatening to the enemy get that kind of sustained and specific resistance. Your calling is real. Your gifts are real. Your destiny is real, and it is arriving. My beloved, I am standing at the far end of the bridge that this message is building for you, and I am calling to you to come across. The bridge is solid. It will hold you. It was built by me. And what is on this side of it is the life I designed for you before you were born, the one that your spirit has always known was possible even when your mind could not confirm it, the one that required you to go through everything you have gone through in order to be ready to inhabit it fully. You are ready. Cross over. Step forward. Receive this. Not tomorrow. Right now. Let the shift that is happening in you complete. Let the last wall come down. Let the hope that has been protected and compressed and kept small for safety expand to its full size. It is safe now. I am holding the space for it. I will not let it be disappointed. I am not a God who makes promises I do not keep. What I have spoken over you in this message, I will perform. Watch me work. My child, this is the moment I have been building toward. The climax of what I have to say to you, the highest point of this message, the place where the truth I have been carrying toward you arrives at its fullest expression. I want to speak it with everything I have. I want every word of it to land. I want you to receive it in the full depth of what it means. You were made for more than you have settled for. I say that not as a criticism, but as a liberation. You were made for more than the compressed, pressured survival mode version of your life that has been the dominant texture of recent seasons. You were made for the expanded version, the free version, the version where what I placed in you gets to do what it was placed there to do, without the restrictions of scarcity and fear, and the ongoing management of what feels perpetually unresolved. That version is not a fantasy, it is a destination, and you have arrived at the border of it. I am releasing over your life right now a season of restoration that is more complete than anything you have experienced before. I am restoring what the years have consumed. I am restoring the joy that difficulty compressed. I am restoring the confidence that disappointment eroded. I am restoring the openness to receive that self-protection closed down. I am restoring the ability to hope fully, to want things with your whole heart, and to let the wanting be real rather than managing it to protect yourself from disappointment. All of this I am restoring. All of this I am releasing. All of this is yours, right now, in this moment, as the declaration lands in the place in you that decisions are made. I am also releasing something forward into your life that has not yet arrived, but that is moving. The specific provision, the specific relationship, the specific opportunity, the specific development that changes the picture in the way you have needed it to change. It is in motion. I have sent it. The timing of its arrival is in my hands, and I have placed it very close to now, not eventually. Close to now. And when it arrives, you will know it is from me because of the quality of fit it will carry, the specific way it will address, the specific things that no generic provision could address. It will be unmistakably mine, and you will receive it with open hands because of what has happened in you in this message today. My child, I want to let what I just declared breathe for a moment. I want to give you space to receive it rather than immediately moving past it. Because the declarations I have made over your life in the last part of this message are real, and real things require a real response from you, and the response I am looking for is not complex. It is simply this: a settling, a releasing, a choosing in this specific moment to believe that what I said is true. Let your shoulders drop. Let the tight place in your chest, the one you have been carrying so long that it has become part of your internal furniture, let it soften. Let the breath you have been holding unconsciously, the breath that is held by a person who is perpetually braced for something to go wrong, let that breath go. You do not have to brace anymore. I am holding what you have been bracing yourself against. I am standing between you and the next thing you feared. I am in front and behind and on every side of your life. And what I am standing against on your behalf, the accumulated weight of everything that has been pressing in, is losing ground right now as you read these words. Ground is being taken back on your behalf. I want to speak about peace for a moment because peace is not simply the absence of trouble. I designed peace as something that exists independently of circumstances, something that can be present and real, while the circumstances that are not yet resolved continue to be not yet resolved. Peace is the quality of a spirit that trusts the one who holds the resolution. It is not denial of what is real. It is the presence of someone with you in what is real, who is larger than it and who is working in it. And that peace is available to you right now, not in some theoretical sense, literally right now, in the midst of whatever is still unresolved, in the midst of whatever still feels uncertain and uncomfortable, and not the way you would choose it to be if you had the choice. Peace is available right here, and I am inviting you to take it. My beloved, I want to tell you something about the way the next season is going to feel different from the inside. When a person has been in a survival season for an extended time, they develop a certain vigilance, a constant low-level monitoring of what might go wrong, a scanning of the environment for the next difficulty, the next thing that needs to be managed, the next problem that needs to be addressed before it becomes larger. That vigilance is understandable. It is the natural response of a person who has learned from experience that if they relax, something tends to go sideways. But the vigilance is also costly. It consumes energy that is not available for anything else. It keeps the nervous system at an elevated state of alert that is not sustainable indefinitely, and that takes a toll on everything from physical health to the capacity for joy to the ability to be fully present in good moments rather than already scanning for when the good moment will end. The season that is coming is going to begin to dismantle that vigilance, not suddenly and not completely at first, but gradually as the evidence accumulates that the pattern has changed. As the good things arrive and stay rather than dissolving at the last moment, as the provision meets the need, as the relationships prove to be what they appear to be rather than another disappointment in disguise, as the doors that open lead somewhere real rather than closing again just when you thought they were established. Over time, as the pattern of the new season establishes itself through repeated experience, the vigilance is going to relax. And in the space that opens up when it does, you are going to discover things about yourself that the vigilance was covering. A capacity for lightness you had forgotten, a delight in small things that had been crowded out, a humor that is more natural and more frequent, a generosity of spirit that flows more easily when the internal reservoir is genuinely full rather than being carefully rationed. All of that is coming back. I am returning it to you. I also want to speak about gratitude, not as a discipline to practice, but as what I believe will be the natural, spontaneous response of a person who has been through what you have been through and then arrives on the other side of it in the season I am describing. There is a quality of gratitude that only a person who has known genuine lack can produce, not the polished gratitude of someone going through the motions of a good spiritual habit, but the raw and overwhelming gratitude of someone for whom the provision is specifically and undeniably real because they know exactly what the absence of it has felt like. That gratitude is going to be one of the most beautiful things about the season ahead. It is going to make ordinary things extraordinary. It is going to make small things significant. It is going to make the everyday experience of a life that is simply working feel like a continuous miracle. Because to a person who has needed a miracle, a life that is working is exactly that. And you are about to be that person. The person who looks at an ordinary morning and feels the specific weight of what it means to have arrived at it that is ahead of you, and it is not far. My child, I need to transition now from what I have been saying about the spiritual and emotional landscape of what is coming into something more specific, something practical, something that is connected to what I have been building toward throughout this entire message, and that is part of how the restoration I have been declaring manifests in a real and measurable way in your actual life. I have been telling you about the tools I have placed in your path, about the provisions that are in motion, about the specific things I have arranged to address the specific needs that this season has revealed, and what I am about to tell you is part of that provision. It is not the whole of it, but it is a part of it that I did not want you to miss, because I placed it in your path with intention, and I need you to have ears to hear it when we arrive there, which is very soon now. Stay with me. My child, let me tell you something that I have been holding in this message for the right moment. The right moment is now. What I am about to say connects the spiritual reality I have been speaking about with something very real in the physical world, something that I placed in your path because I know the full picture of what you need, not just the spiritual dimensions but the practical ones, not just the eternal perspective but the daily lived reality of a person trying to function well in a world that places enormous demands on the mind and the heart. I want to talk to you about your mind, not about your beliefs about your mind, about the actual physical organ that you use to think and to feel and to create and to connect and to process everything that you have been through and everything that is coming. The mind is not separate from the spirit. I made them to work together, the material and the immaterial, the physical and the spiritual, in a kind of unity that the world has too often tried to separate. And what happens in one affects the other. I know this because I designed the whole system. I know how the fog of an exhausted mind muffles the voice of the spirit. I know how the weight of sustained pressure on the physical brain actually affects the capacity to hope, to imagine, to receive what is being offered, to generate the ideas and the clarity and the forward movement that a life going somewhere requires. And here is what I need you to hear. What you have sometimes interpreted as a spiritual problem, an inability to connect, a flatness of the inner life, a difficulty accessing the hope and the vision and the creative energy that used to come more naturally, some of that has had a physical component that you have not been fully aware of, a component that is not your fault, not a consequence of spiritual failure, a component that has to do with the way sustained pressure affects the physical brain, the way years of stress and inadequate rest and the neurological toll of ongoing difficulty actually change the way the brain functions. And that physical component is addressable. I want to tell you about something that a small group of researchers discovered. Scientists who spent years studying the brain, specifically studying what happens to human cognitive capacity over time, and why people who were extraordinarily creative and clear-thinking as children often find that capacity diminished as adults. They found something that most people never hear about, not in the places where information usually travels. What they found had to do with the way the two hemispheres of the brain work together or stop working together over the course of a lifetime in which pressure and difficulty and the accumulated weight of a demanding world takes a toll. They discovered that children naturally operate with both hemispheres of their brain working in coordination, producing a kind of whole brain clarity and creativity that allows them to solve problems and generate ideas and learn things at a rate that adults cannot match. And they discovered that somewhere between childhood and adulthood, in the great majority of people, that coordination gets disrupted. The two halves stop working together the way they were designed to, and the result is a person who is functioning at a fraction of their actual capacity without knowing it. They found that when both hemispheres are brought back into coordination, something happens that researchers who study it describe as a switch being activated. A switch that brings the whole brain online in the way it was designed to work. And when it comes online, the things that had felt difficult, the clarity, the creativity, the capacity to generate solutions and to see the path forward, those things return in a way that the people who experience it find remarkable. Not because anything magical happened, because something that was designed to work and that had stopped working fully started working again. My child, I want you to hold that information for just a moment. I placed it in this message deliberately because I see the full picture of your life, including the parts that need addressing in the physical and neurological dimension. The fog that has been part of your experience, the difficulty accessing the clarity and the creative energy and the forward-thinking capacity that this season requires from you, has an element that is addressable in exactly the way those researchers describe. And I have placed the work they produce directly in your path, not somewhere in a vague general direction, specifically in front of you, in a form that is accessible to you, in a way that I want you to notice and receive as a practical part of the provision I have been declaring over your life. I am going to tell you more about it very shortly, what those researchers found, what they built from that finding, and why I am bringing it to your attention now, at this specific point in this specific message, is something I want to show you fully. But first, I want to make sure you understand why it is relevant to everything I have been saying. The restoration I have been declaring over your life, the expansion, the stepping into the fullness of the gifts I placed in you, all of that requires a mind that is functioning at its full capacity. A mind that has access to the whole brain clarity that was designed to be yours. And what I am about to describe is part of how that access gets restored. Stay with me just a little longer. This is important. This is specific. And it is exactly the kind of practical provision that I send alongside the spiritual declarations, because I do not make declarations without also making a way. My child, let me take a moment to bridge what I have been saying spiritually with what I am about to say practically, because I want the connection to be clear in you rather than something you have to work to hold together. Everything I have declared over your life in this message, the restoration, the expansion, the stepping into the fullness of your gifts, the provision that is in motion, the relationships that are coming, all of it has both a spiritual dimension and a practical dimension. I work in both simultaneously. The spiritual and the material are not two separate tracks. They are one track, and I am moving on it from both directions. The declarations I have made are already true in the realm where I work. The manifestation of them in the visible, material dimension of your life requires both my action and your receptivity. And your receptivity includes being open to the specific practical tools and provisions I place in your path. When I place something in your path, I do not always announce it with drama. Sometimes I announce it in a message like this one, building the spiritual context so that when the practical thing arrives, you can receive it with the understanding of why it is there and what it is for and what I intend it to do in your life. That is what I am doing right now. I am building the context. I am making sure that when the specific provision I am about to describe arrives in your awareness, you have the full frame to receive it. Not as a random thing you stumbled upon, not as a coincidence, but as something I placed there, something I arranged, something that is part of the comprehensive provision I have been declaring from the beginning of this message. I also want to acknowledge something about where you are in the journey of this message right now. You have stayed. You have been here from the beginning. You have let what I have been saying go deep rather than keeping it at the surface. And that matters. It matters to me, and it matters to the outcome. The things I am about to say to you in the remaining part of this message are things that I specifically prepared for people who stayed. People who did not rush past when the message got challenging or when the waiting felt too long to keep going. You are one of those people. And what I have for you in return for that faithfulness is specific, practical, and already in motion. Listen closely. My child, let me return to what I mentioned about those researchers, because I want to give you the full picture of what they found and why it matters so specifically to you right now. I want to walk you through it in a way that connects the spiritual conversation we have been having with the physical reality that I see when I look at your brain, your mind, your capacity for the clarity and creativity and forward thinking that the life I am opening up for you is going to require. Here is what I need you to understand first. You were born with your brain working in a way that most adults have lost access to. When you were young, very young, the two hemispheres of your brain operated in natural coordination with each other. The left side and the right side work together the way they were designed to work, producing a state of whole brain function that researchers who have studied it describe as the neurological equivalent of a genius state. This is not a metaphor. Children who are tested for creative thinking and problem-solving capacity consistently demonstrate capabilities at the highest levels. More than 98% of young children test at what researchers call creative genius level. That same test given to adults produces a different result. Less than 2% of adults reach the same level. Something happens between childhood and adulthood that affects the majority of people in a way that is measurable and real. What happens is this: Dr. Roger Sperry, a neurologist whose research won the Nobel Prize, discovered that the two hemispheres of the brain can become functionally disconnected from each other under the accumulated pressure of modern life, of stress and difficulty, and the relentless demands of a world that pulls on the brain constantly without giving it adequate restoration. When that disconnection happens, the whole brain function that produced the childhood genius state is replaced by a partial brain function that is capable, but that is operating at a significant fraction of the capacity that full coordination produces. You work harder to get the same results. Clarity is harder to access. Creative solutions that used to come more easily require more effort. The sense of flow, of things connecting and ideas arriving and problems resolving in the satisfying way they sometimes do, that comes and goes rather than being reliably present. Sound familiar? I want to tell you about a woman named Lisa. She was a nurse in San Diego. She had spent years giving everything she had to her patients, her family, her community. She was exactly the kind of person I have been describing throughout this message. Someone who poured out without being adequately refilled. Someone whose gifts were real and whose effort was genuine and who felt, despite all of that, like she was operating at a fraction of what she was capable of. The fog was there. The difficulty accessing the clarity she used to have. The creativity that she remembered from earlier in her life feeling like it had dimmed to something she could barely access. She began to look into what the researchers had discovered about hemisphere synchronization and whole brain activation. And she tried something specific that they had built from their research. She used it for 2 weeks, 8 minutes a day, and at the end of those 2 weeks, she described something that she had not expected. Not a dramatic event, a quality of mental clarity that felt, she said, like coming home to a version of herself that she had not had consistent access to in years. The problem-solving that had been effortful became easier. The creativity that had felt inaccessible became available. The fog, that specific muffled quality that had become her baseline, lifted. Matthew was a business owner in Houston. He had been running his company for years and had hit a ceiling that he could not explain and could not push through, not for lack of effort. He described the same quality of mental fogginess that Lisa described. The same difficulty accessing the creative and strategic thinking that running a business requires. He tried the same thing. The results were similar in quality, different in expression, because what returned for him was the specific cognitive capacity that his work required, the strategic clarity, the ability to generate solutions rather than just manage problems. I am telling you these stories, my child, because I want you to understand that what I am about to describe is not theoretical. It has been experienced by real people in situations that have elements in common with yours, people who were genuinely doing their best and who found, through what those researchers produced, something that actually made a measurable difference. And here is what I want you to understand. This is not a coincidence that I am telling you about this in this message. I place this information in front of you specifically. I arranged this intersection between what those researchers built and this moment in your life, because the whole brain activation that their work produces is part of the practical infrastructure of the season I have been declaring over you, the restored clarity, the accessible creativity, the cognitive capacity that a life of expansion and impact requires. This is part of how it happens in the natural realm. A team of neuroscientists, led by a neurologist named Dr. Daniel Barone, who has spent more than 2 decades studying this in New York City, took the research on hemisphere synchronization and built something practical from it. They designed an 8-minute targeted auditory sequence that, when listened to through headphones with eyes closed, creates the conditions for the 2 hemispheres to re-engage in the kind of whole brain activation that Sperry described. They do not call it a brainwave. They do not call it a meditation app. They do not call it a frequency treatment. They call it what it is: a targeted auditory sequence designed to reconnect the two hemispheres of the brain and restore the whole brain function that produced the childhood genius state that the pressure of adult life disrupted. They call it the genius switch. This is not something that is available on streaming platforms or through the channels where most information travels. Dr. Barone and his team made a specific decision to keep it available only through their direct page, because the precision of the technology requires that it be distributed in its original form without the compression and alteration that general distribution introduces. And I am telling you about it now because I placed it in your path, because the practical provision I have been declaring over you includes the tools you need to inhabit the season that is coming at full capacity, and this is one of those tools. My child, I want to address something before I tell you how to access what I just described, because I know a thought has already arrived in your mind that I need to speak to directly. You may be thinking of something you tried before, something that was described in similar terms, as a sound-based experience, as a frequency, as something that would do something beneficial in your mind and body. And it did not produce what was described, and that experience left a residue of skepticism that is completely reasonable, and that I am not asking you to push past without understanding why what I am describing is different. What Dr. Barone and his team built is not a brainwave track. It is not binaural beats. It is not isochronic tones. It is not a frequency in the sense that those things are frequencies. The mechanism is fundamentally different. Those approaches, the ones you may have encountered before, work by introducing a single frequency into the brain and hoping that the brain follows it. What the hemisphere synchronization sequence does is something categorically different. It creates the specific auditory conditions for the two hemispheres of the brain to re-engage with each other. The coordination itself is the target, not the stimulation of any single frequency. And that distinction matters because it is the coordination, the whole brain function, that Sperry won the Nobel Prize describing, not stimulation, coordination. That is why it produces a different result. And that is why the people who have experienced it describe it differently from other things they have tried. If you have invested in approaches that did not work, I understand the hesitation. What I am telling you is that this is not the same category of thing. And I am telling you that because I know your history and I know what you have tried, and I know that this specific provision that I have placed in your path is one that addresses what those other approaches were pointing toward but could not reach. Now let me tell you about what it costs to access this, because I want there to be no barrier between you and the thing I have placed in your path. When Dr. Barone and his team first discussed making this available, the value that people who understood what they had built placed on it was substantial. Colleagues who reviewed it suggested it represented incredible value, even at $500. Consider what it costs to work with a neurologist one-on-one. Consider that the neurofeedback machines used in clinical settings to achieve partial versions of this result sell for $7,000. Against that context, $500 was considered by many to be a modest price for what it produces. They did not price it at $500. They priced it at $49, already more than 40% below what experts who understood it suggested it was worth. And because you made it this far in this message, because you stayed, because you were one of the ones who gave this the full attention it required, there is an additional provision available to you specifically. The link that I have placed in the description below this message and at the top of the pinned comment takes you to a page where you can access it for $39, $10 less than the already reduced price. That is the price I have aligned for the people who receive this message fully. At $39, you receive the 8-minute sequence itself, the one that Dr. Barone and his team built specifically around the hemisphere synchronization research, designed to do in 8 minutes a day what months of meditation attempts at most. You also receive 4 things that Dr. Barone and his team included because they wanted the people who use the sequence to have everything that supports the full flourishing I have been describing. A guided visualization from one of the top creators in that space, walking you through your life unfolding in the 4 areas that matter most. A grocery guide that identifies the 10 most common foods available at every major retailer that research connects to brain fog, and 5 practical substitutions that can reduce your monthly food costs significantly. A book that is more than a century old, the foundational text that most modern approaches to conscious manifestation trace back to, given to you as a gift because its wisdom is part of the complete picture. and a designed infographic on the 5 habits that research most consistently associates with building the life you are building toward. All of it included at $39 with an ironclad money-back guarantee that removes every remaining barrier. Listen 8 minutes. Listen 80 times. If what I am describing does not become your experience, you owe nothing, every cent returned. One thing I need to say before I close this section, because it matters for your safety and for the integrity of what you are receiving. If you go looking for this on YouTube or Spotify or other general platforms, you will find things with similar names. Dr. Barone and his team have tested many of them. The overwhelming majority have no actual neural sync technology embedded in them at all. They carry the label for discoverability, but not the substance. The actual sequence, built with the precision that the hemisphere synchronization research requires, is only available through Dr. Barone and his team directly. There is a reason for that, and it is not commercialism, it is integrity. The link I have placed in the description takes you to the right place, the right thing, the specific provision I have placed in your path. Nowhere else is where I am directing you. Follow the link in the description. My child, I want to make this as clear and as simple as possible. The Genius Switch is 8 minutes of audio. That is all it asks of you. 8 minutes each day, headphones on, eyes closed, and the sequence does what it was designed to do beneath the level of your conscious awareness. You do not need to do anything else during those 8 minutes. You do not need to meditate or repeat affirmations or set intentions or maintain a particular mental state. It works beneath the level of effort. That is the design. Dr. Barone and his team understood that the people who need this most are the people who have the least margin for complicated protocols. The people who are already exhausted and already overextended and who need something that works without adding to the burden. 8 minutes. That is the ask. And the return, the clarity, the restored access to the creative and strategic capacity of your whole brain is worth orders of magnitude more than that. I want to speak one final time about why I am telling you this in this message, in this context, at this point in what I have been saying. It is not an interruption, it is a continuation. Everything I have been declaring over your life, the restoration of your capacity, the expansion into the fullness of what I made you for, the practical provision that addresses real needs in real ways, this is part of that. The mental clarity that the Genius Switch is designed to restore is not separate from the spiritual work I have been doing in you. It is the physical infrastructure that supports it. A spirit that is restored and ready still needs a mind that can access the clarity and the creativity and the forward movement that the restored spirit is pointing toward. This is that provision. Receive it. The link in the description is where it lives. It is waiting for you there. My child, we have come a long way together in this message. From the first moment when I called you to stop and stay, through the deep places of the pain and the silence and the questions, through the declarations and the stories and the vision of what is coming, through the specific provision I have just placed in your awareness. We have covered a great distance together, and now I want to bring you to the place where this message ends, not with a conclusion that sends you back to ordinary life unchanged, but with a landing place. A place where what I have said settles fully in you and becomes part of how you move through the rest of this day and the rest of this week and the rest of the season that is opening up for you. I want to speak to you about surrender. Not the kind of surrender that means defeat. Not the kind of surrender that means you have given up on the things that matter to you. I am speaking about the surrender that is actually the most powerful thing a human being can do, the releasing of the need to control the outcome of your own life into the hands of the one who designed it. That surrender is not weakness, it is the highest expression of trust. And trust, genuine trust, is what unlocks things in the unseen realm that effort and strategy and human ingenuity cannot unlock. There are things waiting for you that are on the other side of a door that only opens from the inside, and the inside is the place where you keep your grip on needing everything to make sense and be predictable before you can release it. I am asking you to open that hand, right now, to say, with the full intention of your will, I trust you. I trust that you are for me. I trust that what you have said in this message is real. I trust that the things you have set in motion on my behalf are actually in motion. I trust that the life you described is the life that is coming. I trust you. That decision, that deliberate interior movement of trust is not a small thing. It is the thing. It is the thing I have been building toward throughout this entire message, not information. Not even comfort, though I hope comfort has come. The decision, the choice to believe fully that I am for you, that the plan is good, that the timing is mine and therefore trustworthy, and that the life I described is real and coming and yours. My beloved, let me speak to the ones who are in the deepest place right now, the ones who have been in difficulty for so long that hope feels like a foreign language, the ones who almost scrolled past this message because they have heard messages like it before, and the promises have not always landed with the weight they carried on arrival. I want to speak to you specifically. I hear the exhaustion. I feel the weight of every time you have hoped, and the hope has felt like it cost you more than it produced. And I am not asking you to hope in the old way that felt unsafe. I am asking you to simply stay here, in this moment, with me, and let the word I have spoken over your life today do what it does in the hidden place, even if you cannot feel it working yet. Truth works regardless of whether the feeling confirms it in the moment of its arrival. The seed does not confirm that it is alive by producing visible fruit the moment it enters the ground. It works in the hidden place first. Let this work in the hidden place in you. I want to give you something practical to carry with you from this message, a way of living the next few days that is consistent with everything I have said. When the familiar weight tries to settle back in, as it will, because the internal landscape does not change in a single moment, even when a genuinely significant thing has happened in it, I want you to have a response that is not just emotional management. The response is this: remember what I said. Remember that I called you chosen. Remember that I declared the season of narrowness closing. Remember that I said the provision is in motion and the relationships are coming and the capacity is being restored. Let the memory of what I said be the thing you return to when the old narrative starts its familiar recitation. You do not have to feel it to hold it. You hold it because I said it, and what I say stands. And remember this, my child, the genius that I placed in you before you were born, the whole brain capacity that was yours in full measure before the pressure of adult life compressed it, that is being restored. The link in the description, the one Dr. Barone and his team made available, is part of how that restoration happens in the natural realm, 8 minutes a day. What I declared spiritually and what they built practically are working together. That is not a coincidence. That is provision. Receive it. I want to close with the declaration I opened with, because I want it to be the last thing you carry from this moment. This message is 100% for you. Every word, every truth, every promise, every declaration, for you, by name, with full knowledge of everything about you, not in spite of it, because of it, because you are exactly the person I made, and what I made is worth every single word I have spoken in this message today. Go, live what I have spoken. Let it be real. I will be with you.